Are you searching for the best in online black radio? Then go to blacktalkradionetwork.com, helping you filter through the noise. Real talk, black talk.
Those of us who associate Florida with beaches and theme parks might be surprised by its racial history.
Yes, it has a very long and fraught racial history that goes back in the area where Trayvon Martin was killed, actually, just outside of Orlando and Sanford. In 1920, there was a massacre of African Americans who were burned out of their homes when two black men tried to vote. This is going very well back in our history.
Why do you think people outside the region maybe continue to associate a place like Alabama or Mississippi or Georgia with the racial violence that we all got too familiar with back in the civil rights struggle and back from the days of Jim Crow, and not Florida?
I think a lot of the attention that accrued to the civil rights movement occurred in those states that you mentioned in Mississippi. We think of and in Selma, Alabama. We often think of those places as the focal points for civil rights movement. And in fact, it's true that many of the great battles of the civil rights movement occurred in other states. But Florida has the history of Florida and the events and circumstances that occurred there occurred in the 1940s, the 1950s, and I think our memories tend to be much shorter when it comes to that. And also because Florida has changed so much economically. It's now got Disney World, and it has so much development in the southern part that I think that's kind of overshadowed our vision and image of what that state really is.
Isabel Wilkerson, author of The Warmth of Other Suns.
The Beast in Florida, A History of Anti-Black Violence. Before I get to the overall purpose of what you were trying to do with the book, I wanted to focus on two words. The first one, beast. Why did you use the term beast in the title?
Because I wanted to connote to people that this thing had a presence. To me, the beast was the embodiment of white racial hatred and violence. That's what the beast was. That was what was allowed to prowl Florida virtually unchallenged for almost a century. It was a beast. It prowled. It sought people out. It victimized. It hid itself. It exerted tremendous power over people who were not even a part of it. So I saw all of that as the embodiment of what I conceive a beast to be, and that's why I use that term.
Okay, and this is in the subtitle, A History of Anti-Black Violence. What do you mean when you use the term anti-black?
I mean incidents in which white people set out intentionally to harm black people. And there were numerous incidents in which that happened in Florida, both legalized lynching and illegal lynching.
America fought a bloody war over a mindset about slavery and race, a war that continued long after the surrender of the Confederacy. Jacksonville, Florida is named after Andrew Jackson, famous for fighting Native Americans. And Jacksonville's Nathan B. Forrest High School is named for someone famous for fighting Northerners during the Civil War. The school opened in 1959, just a few years after the Supreme Court ruled against segregated schools in the 1954 decision Brown versus Board of Ed. In a deliberate reaction to that, the school was named for Forrest, who besides being a Confederate general, was also the first Grand Wizard of the Ku Klux Klan.
Our children and our city deserve better than to have a school named after this immoral man. He had no connection with our city, and his name was placed on the school out of spite.
That's Bobbie O'Connor, president of the Jacksonville Southern Christian Leadership Conference. He's one of more than 100,000 people who have signed a petition to change the name of Forrest High School.
And we begin tonight with a developing story. The man convicted of shooting his neighbor to death speaks out just moments after being found guilty of manslaughter. Trevor Dooley, he says the shooting was in self-defense, but the jury didn't buy it tonight. And Fox 13's Deborah Bowden is live at the courthouse in Tampa with reaction to this verdict. Deborah?
Well, Kelly, it's unusual to get a verdict back so quickly. The jurors only deliberated for about an hour and 40 minutes. And in the end, Trevor Dooley himself tells us he believes race had something to do with his conviction.
The little girl had nothing to do with it. No one had anything to do with it. He brought it on himself. I tried to go home. I walked away. Okay? Now, do you really think if it was the other way around and the skin color was different, we would be here today? We wouldn't. That's all I have to say. Thank you very much.
Has the right to stand up everywhere. When will people, for the sake of peace, the sake of democracy, know that no bomb you can make can stop us from being free?
These assholes, they always get away.
The cows. Justice Gus T. Renegade in for another broadcast, hopefully to share constructive information on the system of racism. Today's date, Tuesday, April 8th, 2014. So I have been told. We should be back on Thursday. We'll give out a few more details as we roll. Remember, if you want updates on the program, you want to make sure you're in the know whenever we are broadcasting, feel free. Follow us on Twitter at Until Justice. At Until Justice. You can visit the Facebook pages as well. Always make sure we post updates when we're going to broadcast, when we're about to go live, so you will never miss out. Facebook, Twitter, if you get confused along the way, drop me an email, untiljustice@gmail.com. The audio clips that you heard, I think Florida has been in the news related to racism quite a bit over the last, I would say, 2 years on a regular basis. A lot of very high-profile cases that got national, sometimes international attention have been focused on the Sunshine State. I'm sure the two most popular incidents, obviously Trayvon Martin, Marissa Alexander, in my opinion. Marissa Alexander, obviously she's getting a new, or I guess, I don't know if people have been keeping up with that, but she is supposed to be getting a new trial. She's out while she's awaiting her new trial. She could be facing 60 years. The black female who fired a warning shot in self-defense. Her black male partner who was physically abusing her. She did not shoot anyone. She fired into the ceiling, standing her ground. She was convicted, but she is going to get a new trial. Pretty much the same place you heard an audio clip. Trevor Dooley, also black male, who attempted to stand his ground. The details: he was out at a park down in Florida. A white man was skateboarding, or a white child, I guess, was skateboarding. He told him that he was not supposed to be skateboarding on the basketball court. A different white person intervened. They had some sort of verbal disagreement. Mr. Dooley alleges that he attempted to turn and walk away, which was corroborated by this white man's daughter, that he turned to walk away. The white man chased him, choked him, according to what's been reported, and Mr. Dooley fired, ended up killing this white man. He was originally convicted, but he too is out. He does have an appeal. Case should be coming up. That's one to keep your eye on. Some of the other cases that have been very prominent in the news, I guess the third most popular one, Jordan Davis recently with Michael Dunn being convicted, but not convicted of murder, being convicted of attempted murder, not murdering Jordan Davis, black male, 17-year-old, who allegedly had loud music with some of his friends. And Mr. Dunn said that he thought they had a gun. No gun was found on the scene at the vehicle. Some of the other incidents and just things that you heard in the news clip, the school in Florida that was named after Nathaniel Bedford Forrest in Jacksonville, no less, named purposely to spite the changes in rules that were going to allow black students to attend school with white children. And allegedly this school was going to be named Forest High School to spite that, because you had a lot of white people who were upset about that. Part of that whole massive resistance to things that were happening in the 1950s, 1960s. You did not hear in the audio clip also Dozier High School, It's the Arthur G. Dozier School for Boys in Mariana, where they have been exhuming hundreds of bodies. This has been reported over the last few months, I guess almost a year now. And there's a lot of evidence that racism may have been a factor there as well. There were white students who attended this school as well. They even think that some of the burial grounds might have been segregated. Lots of reports that abuse and what have you went on, but this has also been something that's been talked about quite a bit down in Florida. I guess the last thing, since we were also already mentioned the high school in Jacksonville that was named after Nathaniel B. Forrest. And we have been talking about this incident before and how many names are you going to change? And it was even raised, well, if we're changing names, Andrew Jackson, former president, the city is named after him. He also, many people regard as a racist. Are we going to change the name of the city? There was just a report that came out this week where they were saying a white author was saying that Andrew Jackson needs to come off the $20 bill. This was on Slate magazine. The title of the report was Andrew Jackson should be kicked off the $20 bill. He ordered genocide. That was just this week. Just some of the incidents. I'm sure I'm missing some, but these are just some of the more popular incidents relating to racism, white supremacy in the state of Florida. We definitely talked a lot about this area when we had our book study session on The Warmth of Other Suns. Isabel Wilkerson, Harry T. Moore, he and his wife Henrietta bombed December 25th. Legend with regards to fighting against racism, white supremacy, and trying to get black people registered to vote, trying to help education, trying to get teachers adequate, just salaries. In the state of Florida. Dr. Marvin Dunn, you heard him in the audio clip as well. He was a guest on the program last year. His book, The Beast in Florida, A History of Anti-Black Violence. He covers pretty much about 100 years worth of racism directly and purposely targeting black people in the Sunshine State. All of that kind of to keep in mind. Our guest for today's broadcast joining us from Florida. I found out about her, again, just checking the news. She wrote an opinion piece in the Florida Times-Union. The name of the piece is titled, A White Person Looks at the Racism Around Us. She says the screams of past racism echo through the centuries and bounce off the racism that is alive and well during the 21st century. I have come to understand that the times, they are a-changing, and then again, they're not. In addition to writing, publicly speaking about racism as a major problem, she has 40 plus years of personal and professional experience as an advocate for social justice. She owned a psychotherapy practice, founded and co-directed a community-wide healing racial divisions project, and she served on the community steering committee for for study circles to investigate race in the community. There was also a 2010 Race Relations Progress Report by the Jacksonville Community Council Incorporated organization. She also was a committee member for that project. A lot of interesting information just about racism in Jacksonville specifically. I know we have a lot of listeners down there. You can check it out if you want more details. A real pleasure to have her on the program, hear more of her views on the topic. Joining us live from Florida, our guest, Miss Bobbie O'Connor. Miss O'Connor, are you with us?
I'm here. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for sharing a bit of your Tuesday evening. Pleasure to have you on the program. For our listeners, this might be their first time hearing from you. Any information that you think would be helpful for listeners to know about you before we get started?
Well, I do believe quite sincerely in that I was sent to this earthly plane to help create equality, to use words and to open minds and hearts so that we can all come to know that there's really room for all of us, because there is. We just have to change our belief system.
Right on. We are always about candid, courteous dialogue on the program, so I'll request that we can have just truthful dialogue. Be as honest as you possibly can. We definitely want details when you give your response, when we ask questions and what have you, and definitely want you to elaborate and be as thorough as possible. But it's been my experience frequently in discussions on racism that people can get a bit uncomfortable, and sometimes they end up kind of pussyfooting around the answers. So we can ask if you can be as truthful, as honest, and direct as you possibly can throughout the program.
Absolutely. I'm not known for pussyfooting around.
Right on. We appreciate that. I guess number one, you are a white woman. Is that correct?
Yes, I am.
Okay. You use the term racism in your writings. It's in the report that folks can check out at the Florida Times Union. What do you mean when you use the term racism?
Racism to me is about I really think it's deeply embedded in the structure of our nation, in the fabric of our nation, if you will. It's there in our laws and our policies and our institutional practices, and it's about dominance and power. Who makes the decisions? Who has the power to control the purse strings and make the decisions about people's lives? I think as a group, white folks have that privilege, not for any other reason other than their skin is white. And we do have a black president. As an individual, he has more power than I'll ever have in my individual white life, but he belongs to the group that's not in power. And I belong to the group that is, just because I happen to be born white.
Right on, right on. Just a couple of points of clarification. Dominance and power, I definitely agree. You did use the word privilege, though, and that's one thing that I try to... I'm very mindful. I don't use that term when talking about racism because I don't think that it is accurate. I don't think it really is truthfully getting to the core of the problem. Using the term privilege, you use the term power. I think that's much more accurate, talking about power as opposed to privilege, with the power group being white people, them doing things to make sure that they maintain control, dominance over the people that they classify as not white. That to me is not really privilege. If we were talking about privilege, that would maybe be one thing if we were saying, well, I got 5 cupcakes and you got 4 cupcakes, so I'm a little bit privileged in the pastry department. That would, I think, be accurate. But when we're talking about something where it is a group dominating, abusing, mistreating another group and having the power to do that in all areas of activity, I don't think it's accurate to talk about that as privilege. I think it's most accurate to talk about that as power and mistreatment. Does that make sense? Is that accurate?
Well, I see your point. The way I think of privilege is, for example, I have privileges as a white person. Like, for example, I could go to the 7-Eleven at 11 o'clock tonight to get a quart of milk for tomorrow's cereal, and I don't think that the attendant there is even going to consider that I'm there to rob him. But if an African-American man comes in, he most likely will probably consider that. So I think that's a privilege I have that I need to recognize, and it helped me to understand what I have that's not available to people of color. So that's the way I understand privilege. You know, I think that if you think about Trayvon Martin and what happened to him, I could walk through a gated community here in Jacksonville with a hoodie on, but nobody's going to shoot at me. But they did at Trayvon Martin, and I think it was about his race.
Absolutely, but I don't think that it's accurate to say that that's privilege. I would say what is producing you being able to go to the store and not being harassed, or people not thinking that you're a drug dealer or a prostitute or some sort of criminal. It is what you mentioned, white people being in power, white people dominating non-white people. That's what's producing it. White power is producing it. And I think it's much more accurate to get to the root being white people are in a position of power, dominance over non-white people, and they use that to mistreat and abuse non-white people. I think that's much more accurate than just saying that it is quote unquote privilege. I think that's, in my view, that's pussyfooting around the problem. I think white people are very comfortable talking about quote unquote privilege and not talking about power and abuse, which is really the core of what we're getting at. The other thing I wanted to get at, just in terms of accuracy, I have never seen one person in my entire life who has white skin, the color white, like snow or milk. I have never, ever seen one white person who has the color white skin. Do you have white skin, like the color of what people think of when they think of snow or milk? Is your skin that color?
No, it's a pale, kind of beige color, light beige, I would say.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not white as snow or white as a piece of typing paper. No, and I think the only person who would have that color skin would be an albino.
I've seen some albinos, and even the albinos that I've seen, they don't have white skin. I've seen quite a few, and they don't have white skin either. It's very pale.
Yeah.
It's very pale, but it's not white. And I think that's another one that I think it's important just to be accurate about, because I hear that frequently in discussions on racism where they will say, well, it's people who have white skin. And that's not really accurate either. It's really people who classify themselves as white. That's really what it is. It's not so much that they have white skin, because there's quite a bit of variation with regards to skin color, pigmentation amongst people who say that they're white.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah,
right.
too. I mean, like, I'm very pale, and then there are other folks who have more olive skin who are considered to be white. So, yeah, there are gradations of the skin pigment, absolutely.
Okay. I think that's extremely important as well. And I will go ahead. I don't have the same definition of racism, although I do think it's important, the core of your definition being about dominance and power that white people have over individuals classified as non-white. My definition of racism, I use the same racism and white supremacy. I use those two terms as synonyms, and I use the same definition for both terms. That definition is as follows: a global system of people who classify themselves as white and are dedicated to abusing and or subjugating everyone in the known universe whom they classify as not white. Do you think that is an accurate definition? Do you think such a system exists?
Well, I do think a system exists. Yes, I certainly do. As the group for people who classify themselves as white. I call myself a recovering racist, which means that for me that I'm working to unlearn the things that I learned about people of color growing up in the Deep South. You know, I don't consciously try to subjugate people of color. Unconsciously, sure, I do. So your definition has some truth in it. It's a little toward the edge for me.
What do you mean towards the edge? What does that mean specifically?
Well, I think to me it's to say, well, let me think about it. I was trying to listen as you spoke. It just to say that it sounds as if. Let me ask you a question to help me understand. Then, are you saying that you believe that all white people are racist, and that means they fit the definition that you're saying of what racist is?
That's not what I said. I will repeat the definition.
I'm trying to clarify. Yeah.
No problem. I'll repeat it for you again slowly. Racism, white supremacy, same definition, both terms. The definition is a global system of people who classify themselves as white and are dedicated to abusing and or subjugating everyone in the known universe whom they classify as not white.
I would say that behavior would definitely be racist. Yes, I would agree with that definition being racist. Yes.
Do you think that system, do you think that accurately describes the system that is in place on this planet currently?
I hate to admit it, but I think, yes, it does.
Okay.
Yep.
You said that you classified yourself, and it's in the article, folks can check it out, as a recovering racist. And you said that you are trying to dispense with some of the things that you learned about you said people of color, but I'll use that term, non-white people. What are some of the things that you learned growing up as a white woman about non-white people?
I learned that non-white people are lazy. I learned that they are more likely to have criminal behavior, and they're not honest. I learned that they're not to be trusted. I learned that they're less than white people. I learned that they should be kept separate from white people, that we should live in a segregated society, and that we should have more rights than non-white people. I grew up, I was born in the mid-'40s, so I grew up in the time when there was a lot of civil unrest, when George Wallace was governor of Alabama. That's the state that I grew up in. So I learned a lot of negative things at my dinner table and my kitchen, and when I went to school, when I listened to adults that were, that I was learning from.
Wow. What do you? I guess let me even back up. At what age? Like, what's the earliest age that you can recall beginning to learn these things about non-white people? Really, learning how to function, think, behave as a racist. At what age what's like the youngest age that you remember hearing these things?
I really cannot name a specific time. I think it's like a fish not knowing that he's in water. It's just that's how I grew up. And so that's what the truth was, because that's what my parents believed, my grandparents believed, the other adults who I trusted. So I don't really remember the moment, was I 3, was I 6? I really do not remember.
Okay. Do you think that, it's likely, probable that at age 5, 4, 6, that even at that age, your parents, family members, friends that you were around, that they were making racist comments, saying racist things about black people, talking about black people being dishonest, lazy, untrustworthy, blah, 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 all this other stuff, that they were saying these things around you at 4, 5, 6? You think that's likely?
I think that's more than likely. It's probably absolutely true.
Okay. Racist jokes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Using the N-word.
Okay.
Yep.
That just an FYI for folks listening in, because I hear this all the time from black people, that they don't want to talk to their children about racism. And they say they don't want their children to be exposed to this. They don't want them to think about this. They just have a lot of anxiety about even bringing this up. This has been a pattern when we've talked to white people who've either said that they're racist. Some of them have said that they're not racist, but they said that they either remember hearing these things from their uncles, parents, aunts, blah, 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 other white people who they were around at 4, 5, 6, 3, 2, very young age. And we have had white people on who said that they told their children these things at their children were age 6, 7, 8. I would say there seems to be a major discrepancy with regards to what information is being given to children about racism between white people, non-white people. I don't know if it was always that way, but at least right now it seems like there's a major discrepancy on that front. You said, Rick, you had that in the article. That's something that I pay attention to. I think one of the few times with white people where they talk about racism and there's no pussyfooting is when racist jokes are being told. I feel like you get a lot of accurate, honest information about what white people think in racist jokes. Can you share some of the racist jokes that you heard just being around your white family members, white friends?
Oh, my goodness. You're asking me to go way back in my memory. I'm 69 years old. I don't remember a specific joke. I remember jokes being told, but I do not remember a specific joke. I can tell you, before President Obama was elected for the first time, one of my friends made some comment about stepping and jiving. and did a little shuffling around, and I raised hell with him. So it wasn't just when I was growing up. It still goes on. Absolutely.
Oh, so even now, some of the white people that you're around, they make racist jokes in your presence?
They do, and
wow.
I'm quick to step up to the plate and say, that's not an appropriate thing. That's not accurate information, and I'd rather you not tell those jokes in front of me.
Do you accuse them of being racist? Do you say, hey, what you just said is racist?
Yes, I've said that before. Yes, I have.
How do they respond?
Back off, Bobbie. Lighten up. Those are some of the responses I've got. Let's have a good time. We're at a party.
Fascinating. In these settings, like when you're at a party or wherever you happen to be at, where these jokes are being told, are other things being said about non-white people that reveal racist white supremacist thought? Like, it might not be a joke, but just saying, whether it's saying something about President Obama or just black people, non-white people in general.
Things are said, certainly, about, that, he's playing the race card again. And in this community, we have a study circle initiative, which you mentioned earlier, which is to study the issue of race in our community. And I've heard folks say, when are black folks going to get over this? And my comment back to them is, they're going to get over it when there's real change. And when racism is not so prevalent in our nation, that's when they're going to get over it, when things really change.
Fascinating. Just from what you shared, like when white people are making these comments, they're playing the race card, and do they say nigger?
No, I've not heard that word in a long time in my presence.
Okay. When they're talking about black people, saying they're playing the race card, when are they going to get over it, telling their racist jokes, do they assume that you also are racist and are going to support and be with them in their racist expressions?
Not if they know me, because I've spoken up too many times.
Oh, okay. So if they
now, if I'm in a place when they don't know me, they might presume that I'm just your average white person who would go along with it. But they won't believe that if they know me.
I see. Okay.
I think it's important for me to stand up. It's one of the things that I can do to help create change, or at least create the space for change to happen.
Okay. I'm just trying to do the math here based on the logic of what I'm hearing and what I've heard from many white people before, that racists assume if you are white, you are racist. Is that accurate?
I'd say there's a lot of accuracy to that, because I think the person who is what I would call deeply racist, tells the jokes, has a conscious desire, like you're speaking of, to be supreme as a white person. I think they assume that everyone else thinks like them because it's so embedded in them that they're right, and so that they would assume that all of us would think the same.
It's been my experience, for whatever reason, many non-white people have a difficult time with that. I would encourage the number of times we've had white people on the program, and we have asked them, do racists assume that if you're white, you're racist? I think everyone that we've asked has said yes. And most of them with no hesitation. That's been one. It hasn't been no hemming and hawing, no beating around the bush. Pretty immediate yes. Racists assume that if you're white, you're racist. Yep. And the only caveat that I would give is that when I say racist, I don't mean, I think one of the major problems is that we think racist, Klan member, neo-Nazi, someone with tobacco in his mouth and all that. And I think that is totally incorrect. That in my opinion, that is one of the major reasons we have not solved this problem. They would not think of someone like you, because you said you're a recovering racist. They would not have an image of someone like you, someone who has a suit and tie, a briefcase, never would go to a Klan meeting, doesn't say the word nigger, might even have a black friend. They do not think of this as being one of the people who is responsible for this problem being, this is why we keep having Trayvon Martins. This is why we keep having Jordan Davises. This is why the high school is named Forest High School. This is why.
Yeah, I agree. Now, could I add a small bit of good news?
I like good news. Let's hear good news.
Just this year, the school board did vote to change the name of Nathan B. Forrest. So that is being changed. When the school year starts in August, it will be changed. I've forgotten maybe it's the West Side High School. I forget the exact name, but they did make the decision this time to change it.
Yep, I'm aware of that. That is the accurate name, West Side High School. It's going to be, for me, that doesn't really count as good news. And I will tell you why. There are so many things under the system of racism, white supremacy, that have names that are blatant racists. And we had a guest on the program, Dr. Jacqueline Badalore. She's been on twice. The first time she was on, she gave a great presentation where she talked about how white people, the dominant group, the power group, how they commemorate and memorialize acts of white supremacy and terrorism against non-white people. They do this all the time. And she used not just the Washington Redskins, that's an easy one. Mm-hmm. She used the Texas Rangers, the baseball team. Mm-hmm. And I don't hear anybody jumping up and down saying they need to change their name. But she says the Texas Rangers, they have a long history of genocide against non-white people. That's in the name of the ball club. And it's tons of these. Unless white people, and I don't even know how much time it would take to go around and change the names of, are they going to change the city name for Jacksonville? Are they going to change the state flag and take that Confederate flag derivative down and put something else up? Are they going to change the Cecil or the Rhodes Scholarship named after Cecil Rhodes, infamous racist? I mean, we just can go on and on. Are they going to take George Washington, slave owner, off the $1 bill? Are they going to take Abraham Lincoln, who made all his racist jokes and said he was okay with slavery? Or maybe we should just ship the black people back to Africa? Are they going to take him off the $5 bill? Are they going to take I mean, we could go on and on and on and on and on with all of the things that would have to be changed. So for me, I really don't care. When I heard about that story, I almost said, I would prefer that they keep it up, but just make it mandatory that they teach everybody who goes to Forest High School why it's named Forest High School. Just make that mandatory so that we're all in the know. We know who this guy was, and you don't even have to, be dogmatic about it and say that this guy was evil. Just tell the truth. That's what we started with. Just tell the truth, and everybody can come to their own conclusion about what they think about this guy and how the school got to be named this in the first place. I think that would be much better than changing it, because what I've seen is white people like to do the switcheroo. They'll do the name change and then they'll bury it so that people come along and nobody knows. After 5 or 10 years, nobody remembers that it used to be named after this KKK leader and how it got to be named that way in the first place. They're very good at that, which just causes confusion so that non-white people don't really understand, wow, Trayvon Martin happens and I don't understand it. What do you mean there's racism influence? That's what I've seen. So that doesn't really count for good news to me.
Well, I see your point, because I do think if I follow you in your line of thinking, that helps us to forget the history. And I think if we forget the history, then there's a more likelihood that we're not going to change. Yeah, I would agree with that.
Just since we're talking about history, do you know who Harry T. Moore is?
Harry T. Moore, I do not.
That is fascinating.
Can you tell me who that is?
I could.
If not, I can look. I'll Google it. And
there
look
you
it
go.
Up,
there you go. I will not, because I know and that's just a habit of mine. I try not to make an effort to educate white people about racism.
Sure.
I have concluded that white people are way more informed, so you can check it out if you would like. I will say, though, just for listeners, for a white person who lives in Florida, how long have you lived in Florida?
I have lived here since 1968.
Oh, wow. Okay. You've been there almost 50 years. You should know who Harry T. Moore. You are a white woman and claiming that you're working against racism and you admit to being a quote-unquote recovering racist. That's, in my view, that is pretty bad that you don't know who Harry T. Moore is. If I was thinking that you were a white person that was, on the up and up and you're really against racism, you would lose like half of your points right there. For not
oh, wow.
Harry T. Moore
I didn't know you were giving me points, Gus.
Oh, I'm not. I said if. I said,
but if you were, I would have lost half of them.
Half of them would be gone right there.
Yeah.
I mean, that would be grounds to get up and leave right then. If I was coming to see you, you were going to give a talk in Florida, no less. You've been there for 50 years, and you're going to give a talk about racism, and you don't know who Harriet T. Moore is. That would be grounds for us to get up and leave right now.
Well, I'm glad to say goodbye if that's what you want to do.
We're still. I said if. We're still rolling.
Yeah,
we're still.
Because I'm glad. I agree with you. It's not your job to educate me. It's my job to educate myself, and I will discover who he is. And but I don't know at this moment.
Okay. Can you share a time if this has happened when a non-white person accused or suspected you of being racist?
I was working with an African American gentleman some years ago, probably 10, maybe 15, and the gentleman said that my behavior toward him was racist.
Say that. I'm sorry. Can you say that one more time?
I said I was working with a gentleman some 10 to 15 years ago, a black gentleman, and he did accuse me of being racist and said my behavior toward him when I was asking him some questions about his financial resources was racist.
What was like the context? Like, what were you in a job capacity, or was this just a stranger you all were having small talk? Like, can we get more detail?
It's someone I was working with. We were working on a project together, and I was trying to make some decisions about working with him, and had heard some information about his financial history, and I was asking him about it in an effort to, be open and honest and transparent as we developed our relationship.
What kind of financial questions were you asking him? Like, I mean, how much money did he make, or what kind of questions?
No. Just like that, there had been some history that things had not gone well, and he had not paid folks, that kind of thing. And I felt like it was important for me to, do my own due diligence before I made decisions about whether or not I was going to be working with this individual.
Okay. Are these questions that you ask other people that you're going to work with, other white people, about these type of financial questions?
Sure. If I'm going to be working with somebody and putting my time and money on the line, then I want to know information about you as my potential partner.
How did you respond to him saying that he thought your line of questions was racist?
I told him that that it was not my intention to be racist, but I could see that is the impact that it had on him. And I felt like that he probably had other folks do things, and that I was just one of the many white folks who was doing stuff like that. And I was sorry that that's how he took it in. That wasn't how I consciously meant it. And that I would do some work around trying to discover if that is how I unconsciously meant it.
Did you do that? Did you think about it afterwards? Did you think
I did.
Did you?
I did, and we continued to work together as a team, and did some good work together, and at the same time as I was doing my work around race with him, he was doing his work around gender with me. So he and I both shared in that, as I had racist behavior and he certainly had sexist behavior, and we did work around that.
Is there another time where a non-white person has accused you of being racist or doing something racist?
I'm not remembering a time. It certainly could have happened, but I don't remember.
That, just for folks who are listening into the program, that's a question I would encourage asking white people who say, they want to have dialogue on racism. They're willing to be truthful. Ask them, have any non-white people ever accused them or thought they were racist? Most of the white people that I ask, now they might not be being truthful. You all should keep that in mind. But most of the white people that I have asked, they tend to say no. It's been a few people who've given examples, but most of the time they say no. I have reason to suspect that they could be being truthful because I think we say a lot. In fact, I'll ask you, has it been your experience? Do you think it would be accurate, based on what your answer was earlier about racists they assume if you're white, you're racist. Do you think based on that, non-white people should have a high level of suspicion in dealing with white people that, hey, this white person, this is probably could be a racist? Do you think that's accurate?
I do think that's accurate. I know that I've had situations where folks I've worked with, in fact, I just thought of another example that popped into my head of an African-American woman I was working with. We were on a team together, and I had some duties and had to leave the group, and I came back in, and she had already given instructions, and then I just came in with my words, and she later said that she felt like I'd cut her off at the knees, and that in fact that it probably had to do with her race. And we had a good, long, hard discussion about that. And what I really came to know, and I think this leads back to your question, is basically she can't ever trust me. As hard as I work to uncover, to change my behavior, at my very core, in my DNA, is my racism. And, that there was, some of the emotions that I had around that, there was some shame around that. And then I also believe really strongly that I can't wallow in my shame. That helps nobody, but I can rise up and out of that shame and try to create change. So.
Appreciate the other anecdote. That is a pattern. I think we've heard that from quite a few white guests when someone has asked them if they could share a time or an anecdote when they practiced racism or did something racist. That type of event has happened frequently where they just totally, whether they did it on purpose, consciously, whatever the case may be, but just totally smushed the authority or control of a non-white person who was supposed to be, quote unquote, in charge. And they just totally knocked them out of the way and took over whatever was going. And because I'm recalling one time specifically, the other white people that were present that knew that the black person was supposed to be in charge, they too just shooed the non-white person away and immediately focused on the white person as being in charge, even when they knew they had been told explicitly the non-white person, the black person, was supposed to be in charge. That just seems to happen seamlessly, instantaneously with white people. I thought it was important words, and very important just paying attention to the words. I do not take that lightly, because this has happened repeatedly. When I hear white people say racism is in my DNA, I've heard that from many, many white people when they say racism is in my DNA as a white person. When I hear something like that, when I hear you say that as hard as I try, I do this work, I write these articles, and I've been a part of projects and been doing this for years and working against racism, and I call out people who say racist jokes or say racist things around me or whatever the case may be, I stand up for that. Even with all of that, at the end of the day, at my core, the racism is still there, and I still consciously, unconsciously think racist things or do racist things, whether it's intended or not. When I hear all of that, I come back to at the beginning when you had some disagreement. I think you said it my definition of racism, it sounds like it's near the edge in suggesting that, when you had a snicker there, that's important too. I go back to the beginning and I say, now, see, I feel like white people are not really being truthful, because it really shouldn't be that much opposition about that definition if you're saying racism is in your DNA.
Yeah, I see what you're saying, Gus. I do. I think it, and it's like that kind of stuff that happened with my friend, and that you say happens, that you've heard happen with just a white person taking over. That's how it is with those folks who are in the dominant group. And in every instance, in terms of race, which is what we're talking about right now, in terms of gender, sexual orientation, class, it's just, we just take over. Yep.
Since you're bringing it up, has there been a time where a black person, he was just able to take over? You were supposed to be in charge or doing something, where a black male, he was just able to totally take over and usurp your authority or your leadership position? And everyone responded to him as though he was the leader and as though you were not in charge.
I can't think of a time when that's happened with a black man. I can certainly think of times when it's happened with a white man, but I can't think of a time the black man's done that. But I mean, I do know that sexism is alive and well in black men. In the ones that I've worked with, it's there, but where they just took over, I don't have a memory of that happening.
I'm not surprised with that either, because I haven't heard. We've talked to a lot of white females who've said that, and they too have not been able to think of a time when a black male has been able to flex his sexist might on them and do whatever he wanted. We have not produced one example of that yet at all, and I'm not surprised about that either. I guess before I move forward, I'll give out the number. If folks have questions for Miss Bobbie O'Connor, the number is 760-569-7676, and the code is 564-943#. Press *6 if you have questions. Especially, I guess, our listeners in Florida should take advantage. Again, the number is 760-569-7676, and the code is 564-943#. Press *6 if you have questions. I will ask now just to make sure that I don't forget. Have you kept up at all? Did you pay attention to the case with Trevor Dooley, the black male who shot and killed a white man, said he was standing his ground? That's down in Florida.
No, I have not kept up with that case. I certainly have read about it, but I haven't kept up with it in the same way that I did Trayvon Martin and Jordan Davis.
Okay. I guess, do you know enough about the case? Mr. Dooley, the black male, saying that he felt he would not be in this position. He made these comments after he was convicted, even though he's out. He's not in prison right now. He's waiting for his appeal. But he said that he would not be in this position if he was not a black male or if he had not killed a white man. Do you think that's an accurate statement?
I don't have enough facts to say whether it's accurate, but based on what I know about the folks human beings who, particularly white human beings, yes, there's a very good likelihood that it's accurate, but I don't have enough facts to say it with certainty.
Okay. I'm just using information that was in the audio clip that began the program about the time that the jury deliberated in the Trevor Dooley case. You can either contrast it with the Trayvon Martin killing and the jury time this past summer in that case, or the Jordan Davis case with Michael Dunn. Both of those cases, I think the jury deliberation was kind of lengthy. I think for Trayvon Martin, it went on for a couple days. I think with Michael Dunn's case, I think it went on for more than one day there as well. With Trevor Dooley, go ahead.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think that the Jordan Davis, well, I guess I should say Michael Dunn. It was the trial of the murder. That went on even longer than George Zimmerman, if I remember correctly.
I think you're accurate. Just, do you think that says anything for both these two, I'll say at minimum, non-black accused killers, Mr. Zimmerman, Mr. Dunn? The jury deliberations in their case went on for days. With Mr. Trevor Dooley, black male, jury deliberation was less than 2 hours conviction.
Yeah, I think that says a lot. Certainly it does. It talks about what I would consider to be the lack of value of young black males in this racist society. And to me, I think if there were as many problems with young white males and all the things that are happening to young black males, I think that we will be rising up. It's amazing to me that you can go back to the time when I was living in Alabama, what happened in Mississippi to Emmett Till. I don't think we've risen much further beyond that in our racist society. I really don't. That's it's heartbreaking to say that, and I think it's the truth.
Have you seen any evidence that the white group collectively are going to voluntarily stop practicing racism, white supremacy?
Well, I've certainly seen individual people in my friends and colleagues and in myself, but as a group large enough to really shift the power, I haven't seen that, and to me it's like turning an ocean liner. When I think about that, the Emancipation Proclamation happened in the late 1800s, and it took us 100 years to do the civil rights laws that were passed in 1964, and then here we are. So it really is like in the Screams Echo piece that you mentioned earlier, is times are a-changing, and then again, they're not. I really believe that strongly. And I think that what happened to Jordan Davis, just because he was playing his music loud, and what happened to Trayvon Martin, and what happened to this gentleman that you're mentioning, Trevor Dooley, times really aren't changing if this can continue to happen. And it's not just happening in Florida, it's happening all over our nation.
All over the world.
All over the world, absolutely, all over the world.
Context of White Supremacy, again, Miss Bobbie O'Connor. That, I think, is important, just what you just said in terms of collectively, are white people going to voluntarily stop practicing racism? Even your comments on an individual level, I don't know what white people but I can talk about you specifically, because you said yourself, even with all of the work that you have done, the writing, speaking out, challenging other white people, you yourself, your DNA is racism. That's what you said. Even with you, in my opinion, would you submit yourself as an example of a white person who has voluntarily stopped practicing racism, that we can say, hey, Bobbie O'Connor, this is someone who no longer practices racism in any way, shape, or form? Can you submit yourself?
I cannot say that, because I'm certain there are unconscious things I continue to do. I'm not consciously practicing racism, but unconsciously, absolutely. And I'll give you an example of something unconscious I do.
Okay.
If I'm walking downtown and I see an African American man coming toward me, I have unconsciously reached for my purse on my shoulder and have thought, dear God, Bobbie, you are not doing that. So that's what I mean when it's just unconsciously there, and that I know that. I didn't consciously think I'm going to reach for my purse. That's what my hand and arm did. And I wouldn't have done that if it had been a white man.
If I can ask, hopefully this is not giving out too much information, but this is in the report that you were on the committee for, the 2010 Race Relations Progress Report by the Jacksonville Community Council Incorporated. What's your zip code?
32277.
32277. Okay. The reason I'm asking for folks who are listening in, they have all these different areas of people activity that show racism in Jacksonville specifically. Education and incarceration statistics and all this other areas of people activity. It's interesting, but a lot of it you can already guess. Black people are going to be at the worst end of the spectrum for pretty much everything that is bad. All the areas you don't want to be on the bad part of the scale, that's where black people are going to be. But one of them, they had zip codes. In fact, I'll read what it says. It says school residential desegregation by zip code. One way of assessing Jacksonville's progress in addressing residential patterns of racial desegregation is to examine where people live. Based on the race and ethnicity of children attending Duval County public schools, the data demonstrate differences in school attendance patterns from zip codes in which 94% of all public school children are black to ones in which 76% of all school children are white. This indicator excludes magnet or alternative school programs, allowing for comparison of only neighborhood schools. Based on neighborhood school attendance, most Jacksonville zip codes are desegregated. A few zip codes are identifiably white or black, meaning that 70% or more of the students come from a single race or ethnicity. And the breakdowns gives as follows: 32208, 93.5% black; 32206, 83.9% black; 32204, 78.6% black. Then it gives some of the white ones, 32250, 76% white. And then 32234, 74% white. Which your zip code again is?
32277.
Yours isn't on the chart. What's your neighborhood? What are the racial breakdown of your neighborhood?
I live in a mixed neighborhood. Like, for example, I was at Fort Caroline Middle School yesterday visiting with my mentee, and I would say that school is probably good 80 to 85% black.
Is your mentor a black person or a white
Yeah,
person?
she is. She's a young black woman.
How does she mentor you?
No, she's my mentee.
Oh, okay.
I mentor her.
Okay.
Sorry.
Okay. Got it.
I might have misspoke. Yeah.
Okay. What do you mentor her in?
I've been with her. She's now in the 8th grade, and I've been with her since she was in the 6th grade. We, just talk and chew the fat, build a relationship. I've helped her with her schoolwork, helped her get her. These were her words that she spoke, which brought tears to my eyes when we had a thing where some visitors came and they asked us if we would come and speak with some other mentors and mentees. And she stood up and said that I had helped her to reach her goals and helped her to have a better work ethic. And she, when I first started working with her in the 6th grade, she was making all A's and B's. And then when the 7th grade rolled around, I think that's the time when a lot of students kind of get off the mark, when they get in the 7th grade and their hormones start rushing around. But anyway, she's back on track now, and she's just about to get her report card. She's back to all A's and B's. And it's because we work together and we have a relationship. And she's really captured my heart. She's going to be, she hopes to go to law school, and I told her I hope to be there to see her graduate.
Do you talk to her about racism?
I do. She asked me, what was it she asked me the very first time we met? I'm trying to remember what it was. It was from a Martin Luther King speech. Darn, I can't remember it right now, but it was something from a Martin Luther King speech. I think she was kind of testing me. And I said, oh, yeah, certainly I know that. It's from Martin Luther King's speech. And, and then we just continued to have the conversation about it. And when I recently did my The Screams Echo piece, I invited her and her grandmother to come, and they did. And she, so we do talk about it. And she understands, understands where I sit in this whole realm that we've talked about. Yeah.
When you say she understands where you sit, like, have you told her
sure,
my DNA is racist?
Yeah, absolutely. We've had these discussions.
Okay. And you told her that, hey, I do things unconsciously racist. I can't even say that I'm not going to do anything racist. She understands that?
I've told her that, and I've said to her, I almost said her name, but I said to her, I may do something to you, and I want you, if I do and I don't catch myself, call me on it. Because, I'll do my best to not do something, and if I do something, catch myself, but don't let me off the hook.
What would your response be to people who say, hey, there is a long history of racist white people doing this, playing the role of the white savior, white helper, going to be a do-gooder with black people who they have abused and put in these terrible predicaments in the first place, to then go in and they get to be the savior and feel really good that they're helping the lowly coloreds do a little bit better, that this is a long-running pattern under the system of white supremacy, the so-called do-gooder white person, and that this is just another more refined form of racism. What would your response to that be?
I'd say there's a lot of truth in that. My prayer is that that's not what I'm doing, that I really have a good, honest, true relationship with this young woman. I know I can't save her. I don't have the power to save her. I can use some of the power I do have to help create the space for her to find her own power, is how I see my role with her, and just having a relationship with her. But you're absolutely right. And recently, this same thing I told you about when she stood up and said the things that she had learned from me, there was one of the women there who was speaking about, oh, we've got to do this, and I don't remember all the detail of it. It was last year. But I spoke up and said we have to be really careful that we aren't creating the space that we think we're going to be able to save these children. We can't save them. They don't need saving. And this was around race and also poverty, and where those two intersect.
You said you met this young lady's grandmother?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Did her grandmother, or I guess any of the other parents or her family members that you met, did they suspect you of being racist?
We didn't have that discussion. I've not just had that discussion with her grandmother. Her grandmother did come to the performance of the piece that was around racism. The racism in the piece, it starts with slavery times, goes to post-World War II times, and then to modern times when Trayvon Martin is mentioned in the third stanza. So she heard more about me around this realm when she came to that performance. But she and I haven't had a lengthy discussion about it. I did. I remember a time when I think I was probably falling into this trap you're talking about, when this young woman needed a book bag. Her book bag was coming apart. Well, I just went out and bought her a new book bag. And then I thought, I cannot believe I just did that. And I called her grandmother and apologized and said, I just got myself around what I did without even asking you, without saying anything to you. I just took it on myself to buy her a book bag, and I will not do that again.
Did her, to your knowledge, like her grandmother or any other family members, they haven't raised an issue to you directly about, you being a white woman working with this young lady?
They have not.
Not surprised.
I'm not saying it's not there, but they've not said anything to me.
Not surprised either. We talked about that before. I will hit the phone line, see if folks have questions they would like to ask. Reckon before I hit the phone lines, just interest of being honest, this pops up on a regular basis on the program. Again, appreciate as much honesty as possible. I think you, particularly if you grew up in Alabama, you probably heard a whole lot about this, so shouldn't be any issues. Are you now, have you ever participated in any form of sexual intercourse, sexual activity with a non-white person?
I have not.
Okay. Right on. We will hit the phone line. Folks who have questions, again, the number 760-569-7676, and the code is 564-943#. Press *6 if you have questions. Let's see. Person that called in from a blocked number. If you had a question for Miss O'Connor, your line should be open.
Yeah. Hello, Miss Connor.
Hello.
Hi. It's nice to talk to you. I just want to comment on something you said at the beginning of the program. You said that you were taught when you were little that black people were lazy, and that you should they should be separated from white people. Well, if black people are lazy, I don't know who the people are that built this country, and if white people feel that we should be staying away from them, I don't know why white males have such a huge desire to have sexual intercourse with black people. As a result of a lot of the older generation black people of light skin. And also, no due respect, because you have been very, very kind and patient on the show, but I just want to say that if you correct every white person that makes a racist comment in your presence, and you call them out on it, you must live a very lonely life, or you must live your life only around black people, because I mean, I cannot imagine you would divest yourself of your white supremacist power to, you know, to cut yourself off from white people, because this, I mean, that's part of white culture. I mean, no disrespect to you, but that's part of white culture to be racist. And I mean, every time you made a comment about that, I mean, it seemed like you would have a really hard time dealing with white people, you know.
Sometimes I do. I appreciate your comments, and I have had to stop being friends with folks because they weren't able to change their own behavior and stop telling the jokes and doing the things, and so I just don't go to their events.
But even your own family?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Well, that's very noble of you. That's all I have to say.
Thank you for your kind words.
Okay, thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Sure.
Before I hit the next caller, just what were some of the behaviors that, you know, they were not willing to discontinue that caused you to discontinue having contact with friends and family members? Like, what were things that they were saying or doing that they were unwilling to discontinue? Just
the jokes and, you know, speaking derogatorily about black folks. And it was mainly around, you know, a certain group of folks, the individual. So you know, I don't want to say too much because it's just better not to identify, and it doesn't seem fair to do that in this point. So.
And I mean, and you're sure you can't recall any of these racist jokes that they were saying?
To be honest with you, no, because oftentimes when the joke would start, I would just tune it out or interrupt, and sometimes it wouldn't even be finished before I'd say something. But I really cannot recall one in this moment. I cannot.
All righty.
Let me ask you this, Gus. This may be inappropriate for me to ask, and I thought, though, that your program was going to be like an hour.
It's, I guess, your time, 8 to 10.
Oh, okay. And I'm supposed to be on for the entire 2 hours? I had misunderstood that.
I thought I know I did not say an hour. I don't think I'm that behind or flawed in my typing. But yeah, there are other.
Okay. All right, we'll keep going. I'm glad to hang with you. I just was checking in.
Nope, no worries on that. The person. Oh, this is Mr. Demery 4. Mr. Demery 4, if you had a question for Miss O'Connor, feel free.
Yes, greetings. Can I be heard?
Yes, sir.
Okay, greetings, Gus. Greetings, Miss O'Connor.
Hello, Mr. Ford. How are you this evening?
Just fine. I believe that I read a portion of one of the articles that you wrote, and you mentioned that some of your friends of color shared some of their experiences with you. I was just wondering if you could share with us some of the experiences that you shared with them on ways that they could spot a racist or how they could identify when racism is being practiced against them.
What you're referring to in the piece that I wrote for the Times Union is I had been with my African American friends when we'd go into a shop and to look for clothing or whatever, and that they would be ignored and I would be given attention, or they would be followed, even worse, I think, or equally as bad as being ignored. And I can remember another occasion when I was visiting a friend in the hospital, and another African American was there, a friend of mine, and the doctor came in and totally ignored my African American friend. It was as if she was not even there. And I remember I just reached out and touched her because I saw the effect that it had on her. And then I purposefully said to this doctor who had acknowledged me and acknowledged the person who was in the hospital bed this is our friend, and I named her, and so those are the things that I was referring to. Does that clarify what I was meaning?
Yes, I'm having a little difficulty hearing, but Gus, it does sound like that she shared with us some experiences where she told her friends of color how racism was being practiced against them. I can hear you a little better than her.
If I understood it correctly, I think she said she was at a doctor's appointment of some sort, and they ignored the black person, and the black person was really hurt by this, and she, I guess, touched the black person or acknowledged somehow that they had been wrong, racism had been practiced against them. Is that kind of an accurate paraphrasing of what happened?
Yes, that, and then I did purposely go out of my way to introduce the African-American person to the doctor who had walked into the room.
Okay.
So I wasn't going to allow that to happen.
Okay.
And that's not, to me, I hear you asking, Mr. Ford, how I've told my friends, my African-American friends, what to do. I did not mean that. I just meant that I've seen it and I've acknowledged it, but I haven't, taken it on that I know what to do other than just speak up. For me as a white person to speak up.
I don't know if you could hear that, Mr. Demery Ford. Did that answer your question or not really?
Well, I'll probably be able to hear it better in the archives, but it didn't seem like I thought that if she would be perfectly honest, that it would be something a little more along the lines of giving them some insight on how they could prevent some racist behavior and mistreatment towards them. But I don't believe that I heard that.
Oh, okay. Did you, I guess, Ms. O'Connor, if you heard what he said, are there any recommendations that you could give out in terms of things that black people could do, non-white people could do to prevent themselves from being victims of racism, or if people are trying to do things to practice racism against them?
I mean, I don't think I am in a position to give advice to black people about what they can do. I think it's more about what white people can do to create the changes around racism. And I've certainly, said things to my colleagues and friends about that. But I wouldn't presume to say to a black person, this is what you need to do, because I don't know that.
Right on. That answer your question, Mr. Demery Ford, if you can hear?
Yeah, yes, it does, and it seems like it's a pattern, that we can't get any information from people that are so-called anti-racist on how we could avoid being victims of racism, but then as victims, we are constantly sharing our experiences with these so-called anti-racists. And, I think it's just one-sided. If you're going to hear it from the victims, then you should be able to tell the victims something that would assist them from not constantly being a victim. I'll mute my line. Thank you.
Good point. One thing I would say at minimum, I think white people, they have a lot of experience with other white people. I would think, because you said you stop the racist jokes, you said you don't even wait for them a lot of times. Like once they start up, you go ahead and do your preemptive strike before they even get a chance to conclude the joke. I would think white people should be able to share patterns just based on their observations. These are things that you can kind of watch out for. These are some of the common ways that white people practice racism. Be on alert, or certain things that they might say that would maybe tip your hand about, okay, this person might be racist. You might want to kind of keep an eye out, or just white people in general. But that seems at least one thing that white people could do in terms of just giving some heads up, just because you have a lot more experience being around white people, if that makes sense.
Sure, that does make sense, yeah.
Right on. The person who dialed in from a blocked number, different person from a blocked number, you had a question for Ms. O'Connor.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
Okay, I have two questions. The first is, when you were first talking, first of all, I'd like to say hello. But the first question is, you were talking about the value placed on black lives, and you said especially black male lives. Is there like a ranking with white people between black men and black women? That's my first question. My second question is, what was, like the other man's, how to deal with racism? For instance, when white people are ignoring me at my job and customer service, if I'm standing there with a white employee, I just walk away. Right? And to the point now, as soon as a white person comes up to both of us and we're both standing there, I just walk away immediately. Is that the best way to deal with them? Thank you.
So let me respond to your second question first. I think it really depends on the individual person. I think what you're doing is one way to do it. It's just to walk away. I think another way maybe to speak up. But I can't speak for which one might be the best way in that particular circumstance.
You would speak up to the customer and say, what would you say?
Okay, so I misunderstood. So I thought it was another employee who was doing this. It's the customer.
Right. That's why I just walk away. Customer service in America, the customer is always right. So.
Yeah, I think that puts a different light on it for sure, because it may create even more problems if you speak up, and probably is better just to walk away. That seems like a viable option to me. And but who knows what your supervisor might say about that? It really, you're in a bind. You're in a real bind.
Okay, can I give you another example? In my other job, I had to call for a service tech to fix the copier, and he did the same thing. Two white employees came over, and he completely ignored me and was talking to them, even though I'm the one who calls for the machine. Again, I just walked away. I wasn't even going to waste my time trying, why bother? I'd much rather have him keep doing that, and then another black person who's more vocal to actually address him. And, you know what I mean? Okay, so now, what about my first question about...
Can you just paraphrase that again? Because in your asking the second question, am I responding? I've forgotten the detail of the first part of the question.
The first question?
It was about the value of black, and was there a ranking, but could you just say it again, please?
Oh, yes, because I've heard white people say before about, especially black men, as if, I even had a roommate who had a racist white father, extremely racist, and she said it was mostly black men, though. But she did say that her father went to school where he was harassed by black people, whatever. Still, and then you just said that the value placed on black men's lives, or especially, on black people's lives, especially black men. I was just wondering if there's like some ranking, or is that to cause more confusion?
I don't know of a specific ranking that's anyone spoken to me. I was speaking about how the number of black men particularly young black men who have been killed, and particularly in our nation, and also when I think about the way our laws are, that more black people get sent to, particularly men, get sent to prison. So that's what I was referring to. Not that anyone said anything to me about that. It's just my noticing.
Oh, because just the way you said value, you said especially placed on black men, it just made me almost think that you were trying to imply, I'm not trying to put words in your mouth, but it just made me feel like you were saying like black men were valued less.
That's so it seems, based on the things that I mentioned. I mean, like the Jordan Davis and Trayvon Martin, the two young men in the state of Florida, and there are others that could be named. So that's what I was referring to, and our juvenile justice system. Yeah.
Okay, well, I disagree with that, only because there has been black women shot too, and it hasn't gotten as much attention. And I just wanted, this was as maybe Gus thought, maybe this was to cause more confusion with black people, to make it seem as if black women were not as much targeted as black men. I don't know. I don't know, because I've seen reports that said that black women also have a higher rate of being shot by police when they're innocent or something like that. But most of the media attention is on black male victims. I just wondered if that was to cause more confusion, or if, I don't know, or to make it seem like black women are valued even more when that is not. When I would go in customer service, walking past a white woman with her, they'll leave their purse in the grocery cart, and when I come, they'll just rush to their cart when they see me. So I don't, you know what I mean? And you said you clutch your purse when a black man walks past you on the sidewalk. I get that same response from white people. I even had a white man at my job looking at me suspiciously when I was checking on my own car, like I was going to, I don't know, he probably obviously didn't know it was my car, but.
Yeah.
Was that it? Were you going to respond, Ms.
Oh, yes,
O'Connor?
that's so.
Well, I mean, I hear what you're saying. I was involved in a Reclaiming Young Black Male initiative here in this community, and that's where I gathered most of my information. I'm certainly not denying that black women and young black girls are also discriminated against and treated unfairly. Absolutely, I'm not denying that.
Okay, thank you for answering my question.
You're welcome. Thank you for calling in.
Right on. The person at 0673, caller at 0673, did you have a question for Ms. O'Connor?
Yes. Peace to the family, Gus. Thank you, Ms. O'Connor, for being on the show, and Gus having her on. I have a question, but I'd like to put the question in the context first. The context is you have a white female and a black male. They are co-workers, and the white female says to the black male that we are in a good old boy system. And she says it to the black male in a way that that she is appearing or saying that she is a victim of whatever a good old boy system is. My question to you is, based on your experience, when a white person describes a system as a good old boy system, what does that mean? Because for me, I think it has a different meaning, and I would just like to hear your perspective on that.
Well, I think for me, as a female, it means that the good old white boys. I know you didn't say white boys, but it is the good old white boy system, that they're in power and they have more control, and it's hard to break the ceiling that's there. And I think that black men have just as difficult time getting it through the system as I would, just a different kind of difficulty getting through. But I think the good old boy system is mainly white men.
Would you say that even in that system, white females still have some advantages in that system? Because even though I state that situation, because really that was the actual situation that happened to me recently, and in that conversation, the white female also indirectly was as well confining how she got her promotions through this good old boy system that she was naming, but there was some elite cliques within the system that she couldn't necessarily get into, and so she was labeling the system in a way that it was more of, I guess to me, it was just saying that there was cliques, but yet she was benefiting from the system. Now, me as a United States citizen that happened to be black in this country, I see the good old boy system as a white supremacist system, totally. However, even though she's trying to empathize with me, we walk away with two different meanings. And I was just wondering, as you were saying, it seems to be more of a male versus female when they are saying, or in general, when a white person is saying, "Oh, good old boy system." Am I hearing you correctly? And is anything you can add to that about the elite cliques within that system?
Well, I do think it's both and. I think that women are not let into the system. I think white women can get in a little bit easier because of their race, but don't have as easy a time getting in because of their gender. And I think that from what I know about the system, that black folks have a hard time getting in too. It's run by white men. That system, the people who have power. So white men are at the top of the food chain, if you will.
And can I ask on that, because this has been a question, I've heard that statement many times. Usually these white men have wives, or they have children, or they have girlfriends, they have nieces, nephews, and family. Is it a way that you can make that somewhat make sense to me? Because I see it still as economically, it still benefits the white female and his offspring or his children or his family. So I don't see how, because my wife can't be the head of the household or the head honcho, or she has a tough time, she's still benefiting from the white male perspective. I mean, would you agree with that, or would you have a different
No, I think there's absolutely some truth in that the white man's wife and children, his daughters and sons, certainly do benefit. And when that white female goes out into the world, she does have some difficulty. She has, the benefit of her father's support, and she has some difficulty too because of her gender, because of sexism. I mean, women earn 77 cents on every dollar a man earns. So there are some issues of sexism in our world.
Okay.
Even though we certainly do have privileges based on the color of our skin, we don't have some of those same privileges afforded because of our gender.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
The person that called in, caller in Florida. Told you, listening audience down there. Caller in Florida, you had a question for Miss Bobbie O'Connor. Your line should be open.
Greetings to the show. Yes, I'm down here in beautiful Miami Gardens, Florida. My question to the guest is, my first question to the guest is, because I heard your answer to under the global system of racial white supremacy, the people's activity of sex, to your personal choice. But I would like to know personal choice is one thing, but do you think it's correct under the system of racism, white supremacy, for white people to engage in sexual activity with non-white people?
Wow, that's a question that I've never been asked before. I mean, I don't think it's up to me to judge that. I mean, I have friends who are in mixed race marriages. I can't judge that. I don't know whether that's right or wrong.
Well, this is part. With me personally, this is part of the reasoning on trusting white people, and it's one reason on why I think that non-white people should not trust white people until the system of racism, white supremacy no longer exists. It's been thoroughly eliminated and neutralized and replaced with a system of justice. Then we can consider occupying bed space with one another. But until that time, because of the rendering of damage that the system of racism and white supremacy have done to non-white black people, especially with the people activity of sex, that we should not engage with one another. And it's going to take, on the behalf of white people, to be very aggressive with that intent, to not to have sexual activities with non-white people. But you answered that question. And it reminds me of what the questioning that Gus was going over with you about, as far as, like I said, the trust factor with white people. This is a program where you're not going to be given plaques. You're not going to be given plaques. I don't know what your intentions are on why you would share anything with non-white people. But it's kind of like give me some information where you are not solid on that issue. Okay, going further, because primarily what I've been listening to is like the everyday interactions of individuals, as far as from the standpoint of quote-unquote racism, white supremacy. I would like to go to more of a global basis on how non-white people are treated on a daily basis. This program, the hosts have had on this program people from all over the world on the subject of racism and white supremacy, and there's a lot of common thought processes from people who classify themselves as white. There's a consistency. I think the primary reasoning on white supremacy being so strong, I think, I could be wrong because I'm not an expert on it, is its codification.
Codification? Can you say what you mean by that?
My question is, ma'am?
I said you said codification?
Yes, codification.
And what?
The sharpness on what you're saying and what you're doing is your codification. Your codification is what you say and what you do. And white people, even white people who can't stand one another, are very keen on racist codification. Even, like I said, I'm going to emphasize it, even white people who can't stand one another, they are codified on racism. They're sharp on it. What can you bring to this program to help us of intel that you can bring to us in this program? Because I'm not saying that you're, quote-unquote, a powerful white person. You may or may not be. But one thing about white people, because there's so few of y'all on this, within the known universe, you have some sort of touch with those who are powerful in some kind of way. And so what can you share with us on that level, as far as from a power standpoint on how white people are able to, right in front of our faces on a daily basis, are able to practice this codification. And we meaning non-white people, do not have not developed the understanding and or the ability to neutralize this powerful subject matter. What can you help us with on it?
You know, sir, I wish there was something I knew that I could tell you. I am not in the circles where this power is. I realize I belong to this group, but I don't sit in those circles. I don't sit at those tables where those decisions are made. I don't know the answer to your question. I really don't. If I had some information, I would share it with you, but I don't.
Do you think my questions to you were logical?
Yes, they make sense to me, but I don't know. I don't have an answer to that question.
Do you make efforts to find out?
To be honest with you, and maybe this is naive on my part, I don't know. I wouldn't know where to start. I don't have inroads.
Interesting. Moving on, Gus.
Moving on. We had a person that emailed a question in. Their question, could you share some of the sexist behavior exhibited towards you by black males and whether you were upset, bothered by their behavior because you felt powerless, offended as a female, or were you upset as a white person, white female, having her power position as a white person challenged? That was the person's question that wrote in.
As best I can respond to that from a conscious level, it was not from my white place, but it was really from my gender place. It was this particular African-American man ignored what I had to say. He would have an idea, and the idea would be his when 10 minutes before I had mentioned the same idea. It was from my place of gender. I wasn't consciously thinking about my race in that moment. Unconsciously, perhaps, but not consciously.
Okay. If other folks, if you all have questions, do not lollygag. We have about 15 minutes left in the program. Don't wait till the last minute if you have a question for Miss Bobbie O'Connor. I'm looking at the report again, and this is online if folks want to check this out. I would encourage, if you're in Jacksonville or if you're in the Florida area, period, you should check it out. Again, it is the 2010 Race Relations Progress Report by Jacksonville Community Council Incorporated. It's about 20 pages. They got all kinds of graphs and what have you. You were a committee member for this report. Do you recall the budget, like how much doing this study cost?
Well, the study happened some number of years ago, and then as a part of the study, there was to be a racial report card each year to see how we were doing. I do not recall the study. JCCI would have that information. It's most of the a good bit of the work is volunteer work where community leaders come together, but there is staff. The JCCI staff, of course, has to facilitate, and there's also, just the cost for producing the reports. But I don't have access. I don't know that budget. I could find out, but I don't know what it is off the top of my head.
Okay. They have sponsors listed at the bottom of this report, and it came out in 2010. Again, just for listeners, this is not ancient history. They have sponsors listed at the bottom of the report, to me, which suggests that there was a substantial amount of funding, like probably more than $5 or even $100.
Oh, sure. I'm sure it's probably tens of thousands of dollars would be my guess.
Okay. about what I was thinking. In my view, that is important because I have concluded that white people, I think Bruce Fine, one of our listeners, she says all the time that white people will spend tens, maybe even hundreds, maybe even millions of dollars pretending, or to at least give the appearance that they are not racist or working hard to end racism. But in terms of actual effort to really do something about it, they will not give a nickel. And I think that is sadly accurate because I'm looking at this report, and you said probably tens of thousands of dollars, which I think that's substantial. In a lot of these different areas where they show information, most of the areas, nothing substantially changed. They're looking from if either things didn't change at all or it got worse. Looking at median household income and that sort of thing. Like, in fact, I can give you that statistic. That's the page I'm on right now for median household income. 2008, the median white household income was $58,978. In 2009, the median white household income was $55,177. So it dropped almost $4,000 for white people. For black people, the median household income $36,508. That is more than $20,000 less than the white median household income. For 2009, the median was $32,254. It dropped almost $4,500 for white people, so it got worse. It dropped for everybody, but it dropped even more for black people, which just further widened the gap between what the median white household income is compared to the median black household income. And just pretty much that's pretty much what you're looking at throughout this study. There are a few areas where it pretty much stayed the same, but it either stayed the same or got worse. One thing that did stick out, they have, or two that I'll see if I can get in really quick. One, rate of new HIV cases. Says the human immunodeficiency virus, or HIV, is a disease which may lead to serious health consequences. People who test positive for HIV may or may not contract acquired immunodeficiency syndrome, or AIDS, a debilitating and often fatal disease. In Jacksonville, the rate of new HIV cases in the black population is 5.5 times the rate of the white population, and the numbers are growing. The new HIV cases per 100,000 population in the black, amongst the black population in Jacksonville for 2008 was 93.7 per 100,000. It jumped in 2009 to 115.2 per 100,000. That is a gain of 21.5. The white population, the 2009 numbers, 17.2 per 100,000. Just to give you that again so you can hold those stats. 2009, the number of new HIV cases per 100,000 in the white population is 17.2. The number of new HIV cases per 100,000 in the black population is 115.2. Do you have any explanation for what that gargantuan difference is?
Well, I think we could use the R word for sure. I think it is around racism, buried right there in the structure of the laws that help to create the racism that's there, and also the whole issue of homophobia, and not having the internalized oppression that goes on, so that folks don't have the courage to come out in this heteronormative world. So that's where I would lay at the feet of racism and heterosexism.
Okay, now the second one, when you say homophobia, what specifically about homophobia and black people do you think is a part of why these numbers are so widely disproportionate between the number of new HIV cases between white people, the number of new HIV cases between black people? Is there something about black people that they're just way more quote-unquote homophobic than white people?
No, I'm not saying that they're more homophobic. I am saying, from what I've learned as I've done work around this issue in the community, that the African American church seems to hold really strongly to their belief that homosexuality is a sin, which makes it more difficult for someone who is gay or lesbian or bisexual to come out and to be protected and have themselves protected against AIDS.
Okay, so I'm going to repeat it back just to make sure that I'm understanding you correctly. You're saying, according to your understanding, the black church, their teachings make it difficult for a black person who says he or she is gay, lesbian, whatever the case may be, make it difficult for that person to feel safe, accepted, to be able to come out, be comfortable with themselves, to get tested, to see if they have any sort of problem. And because of this, it is contributing to the wide disparity between the number of new HIV cases between black people and white people. Did I understand you correctly?
I am saying that is a possibility, and that as I understand from talking to African American LGBT folks, that it's very difficult to be LGBT in the black community. And I know it's also true in the white community. I'm not saying that it's not true in the white community. Okay. But I do know that's an issue.
Okay. This is massive. This is like
it almost,
is. 17.2 to 115.2.
Yeah, it's mind-blowing.
We've had Scott Lively on this program. This is a white male evangelical minister. He's gone around the world, even to Uganda, saying that homosexuality is bad. This is not supposed to be. There are tons of white people. I see them all the time. You just had a white guy at Firefox who just had to step down because he spoke out against this. The white male who is the owner of the Chick-fil-A franchise. It's tons of white people who use the Bible and have this same view. So how is it that this would be a massive problem for black people but not for white people?
Now, I didn't say anything about it wasn't a massive problem. I'm just saying I'm basing my experience in working through the human rights ordinance here, trying to add LGBT, that the young people I talk to, that it is a real problem in our community, in the black community. I'm basing it on that, so it's more anecdotal information. I don't have any statistical information to back it up, and probably should not have even spoken because it is just anecdotal.
Okay. That's I definitely put a red flag on that one. Anytime this sort of information comes out, and particularly if that's, a part of your justification, even though you said it's anecdotal and, maybe you shouldn't have spoken, that is alarming, in my opinion. And I would say it is highly suspicious, just that's given as part of the justification. But I could be incorrect, in my understanding as well. I also wanted to get in the time that we have left. Got that one. The recovering racist, definitely make sure I get that in before we wrap up. Just you saying that racism is a part of your DNA. We've had other white people on the program who said the same thing, that they are recovering racists, and they've had a lot of colorful terms, but they're not just saying, I am a racist. And I think, at least in my opinion, that's accurate. If you're saying that you can't submit yourself as a white person who is not going to say anything racist, do anything racist, you can't even say that about yourself, that you continue to do things you say unconsciously to practice racism as a white person. It's a part of your DNA. In my opinion, I think it would be more accurate, and I think it would probably be much more helpful towards solving this problem if we remove the recovering racist, or even the white people who say that they're anti-racist, but they'll say the same thing that you did, that they have racism as a part of their DNA. It's just who they are. They still unconsciously do things that are racist. In my opinion, I think it would be much more accurate, helpful for non-white people, victims of racism, as opposed to trying to obfuscate and cover up, to just say, yes, I'm an admitted racist. I'm still working on it. This is how I've been trained. This is how I am as a white person. There's no way I can get around it. I'm trying to do things to work against racism. So I say, but, it's my DNA. It's there. And, what am I going to do about it? I think that would be more accurate, more honest, more helpful. Can I get your response on that? Do you think that's logical? Does that make sense?
Well, it does make sense to me. If what's interesting is, I'd say this was probably about 4 years ago when I was in one of the study circles where we were talking about race. I had been asked by one of the the facilitators if I would come to add some of my thinking. And I, in that group, said I was a racist. And there were, I would say, 3, maybe 4 African-American people who were very put off by saying that, didn't know what to make of that, said it was too blatant and they couldn't deal with me. So it was at that point that I determined that recovering racist was maybe a better way to make it more acceptable for folks to hear. But now I'm hearing a different opinion from you. So I'm just telling you my process.
Okay. I've seen that before, and I think that's just because I've seen that before from victims of race. And that's part of our victimization, where we have a difficult time with truth about racism, white supremacy, what it means to be a white person. Mm-hmm. I think it would be more helpful, and I think you have the ability to explain it. I'm doing this for listeners, not so much you, for listeners. I think it would be much better to just explain thinking about a racist as a Klan member or a neo-Nazi. That is totally flawed. Like, get that out of your mind totally, and think of the nicest, sweetest white person with an apple pie and glasses and an apron, and not old, because that gets thrown into that. The only racists are either Klan members or crotchety 90-year-old white people who are about to die, and once they're gone, this problem will be solved. Get that out of your mind. Think of someone who, Miley Cyrus's age. Think of Miley Cyrus with an apple pie and a black person sitting next to. Think of that as a racist. Get that in your mind, a totally new way of thinking about what it means to be white, what it means to be racist. I think you could put the words together to explain it so that even if they are put off, and tell them that's good, you should be. If you're uncomfortable, that's good. Talking about racism is uncomfortable. Just sit with that and just sit and think on that. What does it make you think? How does it make you feel? A white person saying that and being honest enough to tell you that I'm racist. I'm not going to try and sugarcoat it and make you feel better and say that I'm a recovering racist or a former racist or any of these other, in my opinion, not accurate, dishonest terms. I'm a racist, and let's talk about what that means. I think that would be much, much better, much more honest, and get us to a much better place. I would request in the future, if you not reference yourself as a recovering racist, and just chop the recovering racist and just go from there and explain it and deal with that. And if they say they're uncomfortable, that's great. They should be, in my opinion, because this is a very uncomfortable situation we're in.
That's true. It is very uncomfortable. I will consider what you're saying. Thank you.
Okay. The other one, this came up before about black people being lazy. I know with Paul Ryan's comments and what have you. One of our listeners, Lashes, she was saying that when white people say that black people are lazy, they don't really mean that black people don't want to work or that they are just shiftless. That's not really what they mean. They mean black people, non-white people in general, but particularly black people, do not have the motivation, the wherewithal to go out and dominate the world, like what white people have done when they reference Rudyard Kipling's White Man's Burden. Go out and take over the whole universe and do all of this. It takes hard work and effort and the mental power to go out and do that. That's really what they're saying. Not that black people don't want to work, but that black people don't have the capacity, the ability, the will to go out and say, I'm going to take over and dominate the entire planet the way that we have and plant my flag on the moon. That's what they really mean when they say that black people are lazy. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, that could very well be true, because that is what someone who thinks that they're supreme and that no one else can do what they did are doing. So that makes sense. If when you think you're supreme, then no one else has the ability to gain what you've gained.
Based on, you said that's one of the ones that you heard, white people, family members, and what have you, that they talked about black people being lazy. Based on what you heard,
sure. I'm just saying, when I grew up, that's what I heard, and I don't know that. I came from an uneducated family. I don't know that they didn't consider themselves to have power, but of course they did. They didn't consider that. So I don't know if they thought that or not. I'm just saying that absolutely that's a possibility, but I don't know if my father thought that when he made that comment to me.
Okay. Last one, I'll see if I can get in. We've been paying attention to the whole issue about cannabis, marijuana legalization going on. I'm in Washington State where it has been legalized. I know in Florida this is coming up where they're looking at medical marijuana, which is not total legalization. It's not decriminalization either, but they are looking at medical marijuana. And they have tied this frequently explicitly to racism and saying that the current enforcement of drug laws, particularly marijuana, has just resulted in a lot of black people being arrested and getting criminal records that has just really made life difficult for them and contributed to a lot of these what they call racial disparities. What's your view on the legalization? Well, it's not legalization, the medical marijuana and that being legalized in Florida. What is your view on that? Do you think that'll have any impact on keeping black people out of a significant number of black people out of prison, greater confinement?
I don't have any statistical information on the drug uses of marijuana, and in terms of whether more black folks or white folks use that drug. I do know there was a time that between crack and cocaine that more African Americans were going to prison because of the difference in those sentencing laws, and they've changed somewhat, but there still is a difference, a discrepancy. But I don't know that I don't have any information about marijuana usage.
Right. I wasn't asking about usage per se. Just are you aware that they are considering medical marijuana?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, I'm aware of it. I personally don't have any issue with that. If it's needed, then for medical reasons, I don't have an issue with that. I would say yes. I've signed a petition requesting that when they were going around several months ago.
Do you have any reason to think that would significantly reduce the number of black people who are being incarcerated or getting arrested behind cannabis-related offenses?
I do not have any statistical information to make a comment one way or the other on that. I don't know that information.
Okay, right on. We'll see if we squeeze in our last caller, Mr. S. If you had a question for Miss Bobbie O'Connor, your line should be open, sir.
Good evening. Can I be heard?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Good evening.
Good evening. I just would like to ask, I know that you can't speak for a large group of people. I'm just asking your own personal observation as a person who is classified as white. And when you look at other individuals who are classified as white and the history of folks who classify themselves as white, would you say that there is a pathology amongst folks who classify themselves as white when it comes to this need to revise history, placing themselves in historical context of events which haven't historically been attributed to them and things of that nature? Why do you think that seems to be a prevalent preoccupation with individuals who classify themselves as white? And I'll give you an example. For instance, the historical story of what they call Jesus. We constantly see a depiction of a blonde-haired, blue-eyed Jesus, when historically we know that there would have been no individuals who would have looked like the depiction that we see of Jesus in that portion of the world at that time. Why do you think that it is that white people continually perpetuate these sorts of images?
It seems reasonable to me that it would be around this whole notion of supremacy, and that if I, as a member of the white racism charge, then someone certainly as important as Jesus in our historical would have to be white. That doesn't make sense to me at the level that I don't believe that, but it makes sense that someone who believes they're supreme would believe that.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Right on. The article, folks can check it out. It's at the Florida Times Union. A white person looks at the racism around us. That's the title. I'm sure if you Google it, it will pop up. Jacksonville.com. They have all the reports and what have you. You can look at some of the comments too, which are quite revealing. If you check out what folks had to say, I think you can see a lot of what it means to be a white person. I believe a lot of the folks who commented are white. You can just read some of their comments, what they thought about this article and what they had to say. I'll run really quick before we wrap up. It says, let's see, this one is Libertarian Dude. He says, Bobbie must be unemployed and needs a revenue stream, so she creates one out of thin air by being a race hustler. Hey, Bobbie, go over to Moncrief and Myrtle or Lane and San Juan with a hoodie on and see how that works for you. Go to a bar on Edgewood off Lim Turner with a hoodie on and get back with me. That's Libertarian Dude. And then one other comment says, white guilt dribble. We're 150 years removed from slavery. We've made great strides. No person alive today was enslaved, and no person alive today owned a slave. OMG, get over it and let's move together based on the merit of our work and character. White privileges? Really? Shut up, fool. That's just two. It's pretty much the same timbre, if you will, in the comments. I guess before we wrap up, any thoughts on what those comments reveal? I assume these are white people, maybe not, but I just from the tone and what they're saying, I think these are white people. Any thoughts on what that reveals about what it means to be a white person? What they said in response to your article?
Well, as I just mentioned to you in our email exchange, I haven't even read those comments because I knew what they would likely be like. And I had no interest in getting into that energy because it just shows how deep and wide the racism is in our community and how hard it is to live here. So, yeah, and I didn't want to give my attention to those comments.
Wow. If anything, I would say this is a great illustration. Anyone who has a problem with my definition on racism, white supremacy, and what it means to be a white person, I would just say read these comments. We'll give one more out before we go. Bobbie must have just seen 12 Years a Slave. I had the same reaction, went straight down to Davis and Moncrief and started passing out $20 bills. How could I have been so mean to those slaves? Lots of satire there, I think. Is this like a black area? I don't know.
Yes, Moncrief. It's an area that's mainly African American. Yes, sir.
Fascinating. Wow.
I mean, I didn't see a need to read those comments for myself personally, mainly because I know that that's there. I know the belief system is there. So why waste my time and energy? I'm going to continue doing the work I'm doing. I don't need that to fuel the fire of my passion to doing this work.
Right on. I again thank you for sharing a bit of your Wednesday evening. I hope you said you'll reconsider. I hope you will discontinue the reference of recovering racist, because I don't think that's most accurate. I think that's pussyfooting around it. I think it would be most accurate, most helpful to have black people, victims of racism, just sit with being uncomfortable with you admitting to be a racist and then what that means, in my opinion. I think that would be most helpful if you're really about honestly addressing this issue. But I will definitely keep an eye out for your work. I'm sure there will be other incidents in Florida, so perhaps we can have you back on the program to continue the dialogue down the road.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate it.
For sure. Again, Bobbie O'Connor. Take excellent care. We will speak with you soon.
All righty. Bye-bye. Evening.
Context of White Supremacy. I will read one more of these comments just because I think this is when white people are keeping it real and not pussyfooting. They're just, letting it be known their dedication to the system of white supremacy. This will be the last one, then we'll take a quick break. If anybody has any comments that they would like to get in, we can make time for that as well. This one is from who Anelli, I guess. Hope I'm saying that correctly. Wow, white guilt much? Sounds like someone has been to an indoctrination camp, also known as a diversity seminar, where the idea of white privilege is denounced and explained as our inherently evil racist society. Interesting, because I never hear about those pesky Asians being the subject of derision, and why is it that only the Western white countries that people want to live in are supposed to embrace diversity? Not really hearing anyone say that Japan should be more diverse. And if slavery were the thing that was so evil, then why is there still slavery? And weird how it's not some evil white devil that is doing the slavering, but oh yeah, I guess they also forgot to teach you that the first black slave owner here in the good old racist U.S. of A. was actually a black man, Anthony Johnson. I mean, what kind of racist country lets a black man own slaves anyway? But hey, why let a few good facts get in the way of making the white devil feel bad for just existing? Yes, Bobbie, come on down to the hood sometime and wear your hoodie and see how that works out for you. While you're at it, join the fun with the anti-stand your ground crowd who are out polar bear hunting. I'm pretty sure you live in some lily white neighborhood, you know, because the schools are better. End of their comment. There are a few others as well. I won't read all those now, but I think it goes quite a way to reveal the asylee of white folks worldwide and their dedication, really what it means to be a white person. You are supposed to be dedicated, steadfast in your reign duties as a white child, white woman, white man, all of the above. Anywho, we will take a quick commercial, be right back. If anyone has anything that they want to get in, comments, what have you, before we wrap things up. Context of White Supremacy. Hang tight. We will be right back.
RacismDaily.com, your number one source for global news reports on race, racism, and overt actions of white supremacy. From Asia to the Americas, to Europe, to Australia, to Africa, racism is not a thing of the past. It is our current reality. Be informed. Be globally informed. You should be the first to know. RacismDaily.com, RacismDaily.com, RacismDaily.com.
Is racism hurting you? On issues of race, are you unable to speak, think, and act with clarity and confidence? Are you tired of laughing when nothing is funny, smiling when you are not happy, agreeing when you really disagree? CounterRacism.com, you can learn specific strategies and techniques to counter the behaviors of the people who practice racism in all areas of activity, using words correctly, following counter-racist logic, even counter-racist science projects designed to reveal what racism is, how it works, and how to counter it. The open-source code writing format allows you to pick and choose from a variety of counter-racist suggestions so you can produce the code that works for you. Stop by CounterRacism.com today and help replace racism with justice.
That's counter-racism.com.
Do you need a one-stop shop for all of your multimedia needs? Triumphant Multimedia is a skilled team of professionals with a passion for great marketing and chic design. Our specialties include consulting, brand development, copywriting, and creative graphic design that's second to none. We also offer photography, photo retouching, videography, and video editing. At Triumphant Multimedia, our goal is to provide highly effective creative solutions built to suit any individual need or budget. Give us a call at 678-732-8067 or check us out online at TRIMultimedia.com.
Hi everyone, welcome. This is Justice with the C.O.W.S radio program. If you want to learn about, understand, and counter racism, white supremacy, be sure not to miss a C.O.W.S episode. We keep them jammed, packed with constructive information.
to sharpen your use of words to help eliminate the system of racism, white supremacy, ASAP. Also, to be able to invest in my counter-racist efforts, co-hosting the C.O.W.S radio programs, please visit my blog, justdojustice.blogspot.com.
You're just saying just buckets and buckets of words.
I got an uncle real crazy. My Uncle B, 55 years old, hates white people, married to a white lady. And he's sitting around going, these crackers ain't shit, except for Susan. And he tried to explain the whole thing to me one day, say, yeah, I got a white wife, I love her, she loves me, that's all that matters. But I tell you this, if the revolution ever come, I'll kill her first. Just to show these crackers I mean business. Motherfucking cracker ass, motherfucking cracker. Shit cracker, motherfucker. Hey, hi, honey. Motherfucking cracker, I'll kill my cracker kids too.
Context of White Supremacy. Again, if you need updates, want to make sure you do not miss any of the live broadcasts, you can follow us on Twitter at Until Justice. No crazy spellings, just the way it's supposed to be, at Until Justice. Invest if you think the program is constructive. Racism-notes.blogspot.com. Racism-notes.blogspot.com. Listener supported counter-racist radio. Invest if you think the broadcast is constructive. Share links if you have Facebook, Twitter, blog, website, whatever. You can put links to specific episodes. You can put the widget on your page so that people can listen to the program without leaving your site. Whatever means to share the content. If you think victims of racism would benefit from hearing the C.O.W.S, greatly appreciated, helping us to pick up more listeners, new listeners around the globe. Again, we should be back on Thursday. Reschedule. We were supposed to have Dr. Brad Bushman on the program last week. He's the white male who did the study on how video games promote racism. Specifically, I think that if I'm remembering correctly from last week, it's he did this study and he investigated when white people play video games as a black character and then compared that to when they play video games as a white character, and it would be like the violent, go out and shoot people up and kill folks video games. And basically he found that when white people played video games with a black character going out and shooting people, it made them think worse of black people and think of black people as criminals, thugs, potential rapists, looters who are violent and warrant some sort of violent, lethal action. That was increased when they play these violent video games as a black character. My suspicion is that this is probably, white people have already known this. This is not news or what have you. It even reminded me of the study that the white people came out with, I think last year, where it was television boosts the self-esteem for white males, they said. We had the white female author of that report on the program last year, but I'm sure this is not news to them. That's why you have so many of these crazy, well, I won't say crazy, Dr. Wells, I won't say crazy, but that's why you have so many of these video games where you're going out. I think Resident Evil, they have one where you go to Africa and you're killing all these black zombies, and they got another one, I think Call of Duty, where you get to play as a white guy and you get to go out and kill all these folks, a lot of them non-white people. That's why they have so many of these games that are set up in this manner. Even Grand Theft Auto and what have you, they have no shortage of these sort of games to just continue to instill that in the mind of very young white people. Just another way of programming, getting that messaging out for them to function, think as the next generation of racist woman, racist man. That should be Thursday, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. Dr. Brad Bushman. You can check the study out online, see what people have been saying and what have you. The comment I will make, I'll check to see if other folks have anything. I prefer not to be here for the full 3 hours unless folks have something really earth-shattering to offer. Her rationalization of the gargantuan gap in the number or what they call disparity between the number of new HIV cases reported in Tallahassee between white people and non-white people. I wish I had got that in before she left. That, in my view, is a monumental act of racism, white supremacy, and I suspect it is conscious amongst white people when they do this. I was curious as to what she was going to say. I was thinking of the programs that we've done around what is called HIV/AIDS, and some of the guests that we've had on the program, Dr. Nancy Turner Banks and some of the other folks, where she says a lot of this, it is just straight propaganda. They will just make up these numbers, make up these statistics, anything to quote unquote tar black people as being somehow defective. Same thing we talked about on this past Saturday, the compensatory call-in with those billboards in Los Angeles. And what they said, the audio report where they were talking about Detroit, where black people, the fear that black people had some sort of venereal diseases. So the black female employees had to eat their lunch in the bathroom because white people didn't want to be contaminated by them. The same thing, in my opinion, to have statistics like this, where it's in 2009 reported that 17.2%, or 17.2 numbers of new HIV cases per 100,000 in the white population, 115.2 per 100,000 in the black population, number of new HIV cases. Her explanation being homophobia in the black community. And I said, I was reminded, Dr. Nancy Turner Banks, there would have to be something really defective about black people to explain that. I mean, it would have to be astronomical levels of what she called homophobia to explain this. And it, in my opinion, would also have to mean that you got an astronomical number of quote unquote gay, lesbian, whatever the case may be, black people that are quote unquote contaminated or infected, suffering from what is called HIV, for this to be the case, for this to be that much of a problem, in my opinion. But I think that is a massive, deliberate, planned, codified act of racism, white supremacy on the part of white people. I have been saying for months now, in my opinion, you can just watch it. It is a pattern. White people keeping black and gay in close proximity and frequently branding black people as being homophobic or having some sort of malice against black gay people. This is constant. They're using Uganda to say this. Oh my God, look at these savages on the continent of Africa. And oh my God, I can't believe what they're doing. And then they'll point up any examples that they can find here. I think it was 2 weeks ago, Jason Collins, the black male basketball player, who I think about a year ago, he quote unquote came out and announced that he was gay. And he had said then that he had been overwhelmingly supported. He had not been mistreated. Everyone was very nice to him. And, you know, nobody said anything mean to him. He said he himself was surprised at how supportive and kind everyone had been. They reported, I think, 2 weeks ago that I think during a game, somebody made some sort of slur or comment to him. And he said, this is the only time, the only incident where somebody said something mean or nasty to him about him being a quote unquote gay person. And he said he wasn't even going to dignify by naming the person and moving forward. But white people made a to-do about that. And I think this is a part of the package, branding black people homophobic. They got something against gay people. And it even frequently comes across as, see, black people are racist too. Because if you don't define racism, you're not specific about it, that's the way it ends up coming across. See, black people are racist too. Look at how they treat other black gay people. I could be in error, but I would just say this is something pay attention to. And again, it's not about mistreating anybody. I'm definitely not about mistreating any black people for any reason, whether they identify as lesbian, gay, whatever the case may be. They should not be mistreated. I'm just saying this is a part of the racist package right now to depict black people as being quote unquote homophobic and out to get quote unquote gay people. This is a big part of the package. I think of it as just confusion and another way of keeping us in conflict with one another. And one of the ways you can diffuse all that is not saying, hey, I don't have any problem with quote unquote black gay people. I don't agree. I have said consistently, and I still say I don't agree with that behavior. I don't think it's correct, but I'm certainly not going out to mistreat anyone, any black person. If they do engage in or participate in that behavior, I don't think they should be mistreated. I do not support that at all. But I think all of this in pushing and promoting this behavior is a part of racism, white supremacy. I will continue to say that. At any rate, if anybody had any thoughts they wanted to get in before we wrap things up, the folks who dialed in, everybody who had a hand up, line should be open. Folks had, I am getting some background noise though. I don't know if you, make sure you're not on speakerphone, I guess, number one. And then I guess if you're in a noisy environment, maybe watch that, try to get someplace where it's not noisy. You can use your mute button as well if you know you're in a noisy environment. But the folks who dialed in right now, lines should be open. If you all had anything you want to share based on what Ms. O'Connor had to say.
Yes, I just thought it was kind of frustrating that she didn't have any suggestions on how to deal with racism, white supremacy, or how to combat it for a black person, how to combat it when she's been alive since, she said she was born in the 40s. Mm-hmm. I just found that interesting, that she didn't have any suggestions for the one male caller who was asking her. That's all I have to say.
That's pretty standard. I think most, I feel like that question has been asked, or one similar to it has been asked more than once on the broadcast, and I feel like pretty consistently the white people, for the most part, will say they don't know, or they'll say something like, well, I don't feel comfortable as a white person giving you advice on what to do to combat racism, and I don't feel like as a white person I can tell you what to do. I think I've heard that. That seems like part of the racist code. Like if a black person asked you what to do to combat racism or how to protect yourself from racism, tell them that you don't feel comfortable doing that as a white person because you don't really know, and it wouldn't be my place. That's pretty much in the ballpark of what I have heard almost every time when that sort of question has been asked. I liken it to a jailer is not going to tell an inmate how to break out of prison. I mean, that's just not going to happen. So. Yeah, not that I'm surprised, but I think if you go back in the archives when that question has been asked or one similar to it, you'll hear almost verbatim the exact same response every time.
That was my reasoning for questioning was not for her and her gratification, which is what I suspect white people of her taste thrive on, with that Tim Wise like type of white person, which she fits in that category in my opinion. It was for the non-white listeners to expose this person, and because one thing, and I'm not so smart at all. But one thing that I think that is important to me is to always have a cadre of questions to, put that white person on the witness stand. And what do they call it in court? I think it's not prosecution, but like the prosecuting attorney, start questioning that white person because they do a lot of harm. People like her do a lot of harm to non-white people in the most sophisticated way. Most of us, I hear it on this program where it appears that some non-white people are aware of it. But for the most part, when we go out in our own separate daily lives, we run into very few non-white black people who wouldn't be praising a white person like this, and just give them a blank check and give them our social security number, our credit card number, and everything, just because they being nice and they're saying, I'm with y'all, I agree with you about racism, and that's it, and you just run off with it. So, it's always good to have that set of questions, because, especially that sex thing. I heard her talking about what she is personally, But I wanted to press it to her. Well, maybe you're not very, that. Maybe she's not really attractive or anything like that. And by she's being in her 40s, being born in 1940s, she's relatively elderly white female. But no, I want to know what your quote unquote personal opinion is about the subject matter. And tell me something I don't know. Come on, no, you exposed. That's basically what I was saying. You exposed. Moving on.
This is a little off topic, but it kind of ties in with white people wanted to tie us to AIDS and homophobia, everything negative. My mother was watching Dr. Oz, and on his show he was talking about dandruff. And then she was just disgusted when he goes, oh, and African Americans are the number one group to get dandruff. It's like even something as small as dandruff, they're trying to, who wants dandruff? And my mom was, I was dying. Like, my mom was like, she was just disgusted. She's like, and my mom, even before I started listening to the show, my mom would tell me how white people will say, oh, we're most likely to get hit by a car. Everything negative, they'll say, they'll put on us. And he said, dandruff, Dr. Oz, African Americans are likely to get dandruff, even though we see white flakes on their shirts all the time, but it's us.
Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah, and for instance, I saw in a medical book that Italians are more likely to conceive mentally retarded kids. But how many times have you heard on the news or anything, white people say that white people are at higher risk for having mentally retarded children? I never heard of that though.
You actually have to dig for that information.
Right.
I mean, all across the board in almost everything. Even some of the standard stuff about quote unquote crime and black males and whatnot, that sort of thing. And really, when it comes down to it, the truth is, it's all white people leading in all of that.
Right.
Yes,
like I'm hearing you saying that they don't make it public. They don't make it popular. Which
right.
I'm not naive. Though. I mean, it's just like Gus was saying. They're not going. The warden is not going to tell the inmates on how to get out of prison. So I mean, it's war. It is war. That's another thing I wanted to. That I didn't get an opportunity to nothing on you, Gus, but I didn't have the opportunity to ask her. It is about okay, is the system of racial white supremacy war on non-white people, and then what are your suggestions on should there be any violent reaction to resist that aggressive violence on non-white people? What are your suggestions on? Like I said, putting the fire to her feet.
Yes, can I be heard?
Yes, sir.
Gus, I wanted to ask you, I tuned in a little bit late, but on your definition of racism, did she have a problem with the dedicated part of your definition?
Yes, she did. The phrase she used was, I think she said, it's a little bit close to the edge, if I'm remembering correctly. That was the phrase she used. And I said, well, what does that mean? And she said, it sounds like you're saying that all white people are racist. It sounds like you're saying that white people are out doing this deliberately or intentionally, and something else. That was the original phrase, and then she gave her breakdown as to why. For me, at least, the significant part, and then she said that she does think that system, she thinks that that's pretty accurate, that such a system is in place, though. Anyway, fast forward about maybe an hour into the program, and she said that her DNA was racist. Racism is her DNA. right? And she said she had said that other racists, they assume that if you're white, you're racist. And I said, now let's just take those two pieces of information. Why would then you look at me like I'm crazy when I give my definition of race? And before I could even finish the sentence, she started laughing. And I said, oh, that laugh is important. And she said, yeah, you're right. Good point. Blah, blah, blah. This was about an hour later into the program.
True to form. I thought it was good. Yep. Can I be heard?
Yes, sir. Just give me 1 moment. I'm sorry. It was a caller just to Mr. Demery Ford's question or what he raised. She said it was interesting how Demery Ford asked the guest how she informs victims on how they can strategize on what to do when white people are practicing racism against them, and she did not have an answer, paraphrasing, yet she was eager to inform of her savior efforts with a black child, and her conversation regarding racism, white supremacy with this white child was relegated to Martin Luther King and not mentoring this child she cares so much for on what the black child can do to counteract terrorist acts. I guess her apology to the child's grandmother for buying her a backpack was much more valuable. Her mentoring, as described, borders on transracial abduction. That was her comment. The male caller, yes, we can hear you. Proceed.
I guess. I just wanted to comment on a part of the statement that she was making in regards to an employer, I guess an employer or co-worker or something, whatever relationship, but it was a black female that was in charge of the project. She came in and just, took over and took charge and cut, I think she used, cut the knees off, legs off the woman, I guess is a symbolic way of saying it. But she mentioned that she tried to make amends. I'm not sure what way. I mean, the appropriate amends would be to, leave, just leave the group. But she said after we couldn't resolve it, she said instead of wallowing in her shame, she just, forgot about it and just kept it moving. And I thought that is such a historical move. How white races or white supremacy, how the system, it never wants to amend whether it's wrongs, meaning restitution or retributive means of trying to correct a wrong. You just want to say, hey, forget about it, that was then, let's move on, let's go on with it. And I just thought that was an interesting comment that she made in that story.
Yeah, I think folks who listen in have heard that regularly in terms of that same response where it's supposed to be a black person that is quote unquote in charge and the white person swoops in and takes over. And then if it's other white people who are, I guess, supposed to be listening or whatever, they're supposed to be paying attention to this black person that's in charge, that they just go along with. As I said, that's standard operating procedure. White people know. I think that just goes to, I think that's something we need to understand. If you are a non-white person, you are not in charge, like regardless of what your title is or whatever degrees and all that other stuff, like understanding I am still subject to racist man, racist woman, racist, just understanding that at all times, not being surprised when that sort of thing happens, and just already having your code for how you deal with that sort of thing. But I think that will go a long way in terms of just our sanity and our mental health, not thinking just because you have a degree or a title or what have you that you are not subject to white people in all areas of people activity. Unless anybody had any other comments they wanted to get in, I need to make sure I got in the book club. I posted the books that have been suggested thus far, at least the books that I had titles for. I know some people made recommendations for books in specific areas of people activity, but they did not accompany their suggestion with the book title and or the book author. So the books that have been suggested that I got, a title of book for, I put them on the Facebook page. Right now, 2000 Seasons is pretty much running away with it. I think that by far has the most votes. I haven't counted them all, but I mean, it's pretty obvious 2000 Seasons is running away with things right now. Unless something changes drastically between now and tomorrow, that looks like that's going to be the next book. If you do not want to do 2000 Seasons, I would encourage you to vote and then to get a whole lot of other people to vote as well for whatever book you would like to do. You can email your vote. You can do it on the Facebook page. I put the link with all the books that have been suggested and everything. I put it on my page, and I put it on in the both of the Facebook groups as well. So you can, wherever you normally go to check out material on the cows on Facebook, you can just vote there. But unless you can get a move on in the next 24 hours, it's looking strongly like it's going to be 2000 Seasons. So for folks who are into preparing, if you want to go and get a hard copy of the book, I'm not sure if there's a PDF available of this or not. If I find one, I'll give it out. I have a hard copy. That's why I'm not as concerned. This is one of the few times I can give out page numbers because I have a hard copy of this. But yeah, it looks like this will likely be the next book starting on Friday. Ayikwe Armand, 2000 Seasons. Looks like we will be staying on the continent for literature for the set. Well, I can't even say that. At least it'll be focused on the continent, but I can't even say that because I think a white man wrote Long Walk to Freedom. But anywho, that's update on the book club. We got another 24 hours to vote if you are so inclined. Anybody have anything else they wanted to get in before we wrap things up? Right on. I will assume folks are good. As I said, we should be back Thursday for the next broadcast, and then Friday, book club, Saturday, compensatory call-in. I'll give out the other updates for other upcoming broadcasts as well. Oh, Sunday, forgot. Sunday, we should be doing the school session. Everybody take their 5 minutes to share an incident from the classroom. Well, I can't even say the classroom, just anything in the area of education. I want to make sure that we are covering all our bases. So if there are people out there, I know we have listeners who are educators, who are in the classroom, who are guidance counselors, who are faculty, staff, admin side of academics. If you all want to participate, we did one of these programs before. I thought it was very constructive. Just hearing all of the different ways that white people wage war on us with regards to academics and education. If you have children, they want to participate. Everybody gets 5 minutes to share an incident of racism with regards to education. When we did it before, we had enough participation that it almost took up the entire 3 hours. We didn't have a lot of repetition and people going more than once and everything. When we did it before, we had enough people that, like I said, it took up almost the entire 3 hours of people just sharing and doing 5 minutes. And I think that is significant, if nothing else, number one, to motivate and encourage non-white parents to be diligent in talking with your children honestly about racism. Supremely important. You heard our guest, Miss O'Connor, saying that she was hearing this stuff at 3, 4, 5, 6, hearing her parents make their views about racism known, public, understood clearly from since before she could even understand. And I've heard that consistently from white people. and to make sure that you have a plan in place. What are we going to do to educate our child? This is what's going to be waiting on them if we don't. Let's look at alternatives, homeschool, independent schools. Look at what's available in your area, networking with other black parents in your neighborhood, other victims of racism, to see if you can come up with something if there is no option available where you happen to be at. But it is critical. And again, if you don't feel up to it, the homeschooling, if you don't feel qualified, you don't feel like, you can do an adequate job educating your child, hey, Jerry Sandusky and company, they are always waiting with the door open. They will have a seat for your child. Rest assured, no problem. You can always send them back to white people. They do not turn anyone down. That said, this Sunday, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific, tune in. Definitely looking forward to hearing different incidents and what people have to say, what they have experienced really with regards to racism, white supremacy. Tune in this Sunday evening, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. Did 8325, did you have something you wanted to get in before we close things out?
Yeah, like the question is saying, like, remark that said, well, all black folks are homophobic or something like that, or they always try to use, that scapegoats, like, okay, we're not talking about, sexuality, we're talking about race, and it's like, and the thing is, I don't hear about, like, all black folks going around, like, beating up gay people or hitting people or something like that, and like, and the term homophobic is misused. Basically, it means a fear or something like that. A fear of a phobia is a fear or something like that. So basically, is in the sense that, like, I don't think black people fear homosexuality. They might not agree with the behavior, but that's different from homophobic. So, like, homophobia is a fear or something like that, but not agreeing with the behavior, not agreeing, accepting the behavior is not a phobia. It's like, it's in the sense, it's like, oh, well, I don't agree with, like, a person, like smoking weed or something. I don't agree with that. Like, oh, well, you must be weed phobia or something. You know what I'm saying? So it's like they try to use words. White people use words to trick us. So they mastery of deception of how they use words and concepts. That's basically all I had to say.
Yep. Excuse me. I would definitely agree. They do a really good job of that. I think we talked about, I know Pam and some of our other guests have talked about just the use of that term, homophobic, as a weapon to brand black people and attack black people. Frequently ended up being black people who have never mistreated anybody, never advocated that anyone be mistreated, who's engaging in these behaviors, just saying, hey, this is a behavior that I do not agree with. This is a behavior that I do not support or encourage. And somehow you end up being branded as quote unquote homophobic, whatever that's supposed to mean. But standard, in my view, that's one of the standard racist tactics. I feel like there's a pattern of this, particularly worldwide, if you pay attention to what they're doing on the continent here. And it's not even just there. I played the report, I think it was from last summer, July, I believe, where they were doing a documentary, same thing going on in Jamaica, where they were saying, oh my God, the black people there are so barbaric in the way that they treat quote unquote gay black people in Jamaica. And they were doing a documentary and they had some white guy involved with all of this. My bad. I didn't get thrown up, just somebody emailed me. There is a PDF of 2,000 seasons available. So if somebody needs the PDF, let me know that such a document is available. There is a PDF for 2,000 seasons if you need it or if anyone would like it to prepare. We still have 24 hours to go in the voting. So, other folks can vote in if you would like another book. But that is pretty much looking like, I feel that's just too, because there was a tie when we voted in September to do Warmth of Other Suns. Those two books tied. And we did Warmth of Other Suns just because I've already read 2,000 seasons. I decided to do that one. Plus, I thought this would come up again, and it did. So it'll be just, we'll go ahead and knock that out since a lot of people have wanted to read this book, and I've said repeatedly, I think it's this is one of the best books that I've read. I think it reveals a lot about white supremacy. But at any rate, with regards to the quote unquote homosexuality and what have you, I hope that was not lost on listeners. Process it, think about it, and just pay attention. You know, when you're reading the news or talking to people or going about your day, pay attention to how often that comes up. This notion that black people are somehow uniquely, especially homophobic and especially savage and bad to other gay black people and making life difficult for them. Just pay attention to how frequently that pops up, and we can share. I was actually going to go ahead and wrap things up, sir, unless you had a quick comment you were going to get in.
Well, yeah, I mean, I noticed that, like, when you said, well, no sex between the blacks and whites, they say, well, this is 2014, you shouldn't trip off, like, blacks, engaging in or marrying whites, and so basically, when you marry a white, you marry into the white supremacy power structure. So basically, when you marry white, you marry into the culture. So it's basically, it's in a sense, that's being racist, but they don't understand, the structure behind it. And it seems like, white people are like obsessed with sex. This whole obsession with sex or something is disturbs me or something. They're very obsessed about diversity and and all this. And at the same time, we should interracial dating and doing all this stuff. But then at the same time, black folks are getting killed and being oppressed at the same time and taking our resources from the continent. And I'm thinking they're so contradictory. The white culture is so contradictory, man. That's all I say.
Right on. Yeah, I think white people, I think as the caller in Florida said earlier, white people are waging war against non-white people in all areas of people activity, and they understand the impact of sex, how that impacts a person, long-range ramifications. They understand that. Dr. Baruti, in his book, The Sex Imperative, he talks about that in detail. And I think, if anything, I don't think it's ignorance. I think that's just another part of their war strategy, war tactic against non-white people. Just be prepared. I think, if anything, non-white people do not understand. People can wage war on you in all different areas, not just with a gun, that people can come and be naked and in your bedroom and still waging war against you. And I think not enough victims of racism understand that. I think to the quip, the caller in Alabama references all the time that movie where the white man is referencing his penis as a weapon. That's the way that we should think too. White people frequently look to use genitalia as a weapon, theirs and ours, using our own genitalia against us. But we'll, I'm sure, have time to talk about this down the road. Thanks, everyone, for tuning in. Tune in Thursday. Should be back. We'll have a white man, Dr. Brad Bushman. He did the study, Video Games Promoting Racism, White Supremacy, and specifically white people having anti-black views as a result of playing all these violent video games. This Thursday, normal broadcast time, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. Tune in. Hopefully, will be constructive. Looking forward to hearing from him. Make update from last week. If you all have any questions, confusion, concerns, feel free to drop me an email, untiljustice@gmail.com, just like it sounds. Or you can follow on Twitter @untiljustice. Get updates for when we're going to be broadcasting. Thanks all for the questions. Hope it was a constructive investment of your Tuesday evening now. Anybody want to do the prayer to wrap things up? Right on. I will do it myself. Thanks again. Vote if you do not want to do 2000 Seasons. Great book, but if you had another book that you want to do, definitely vote. Encourage other folks to vote for the book. We have another 24 hours. I will make it official tomorrow if indeed it is going to be 2000 Seasons that we are doing. I will knock our prayer out and we will be all good. Let's see. All right. To the creator of the universe, the one who is complete in every way, who is all-knowing and the giver of all things necessary to produce justice, truth, harmony, and balance in our lives. We humbly ask for your protection and guidance through a maze of deception, self-hatred, anti-blackness, exploitation, and white terrorism. We long for the spiritual connection of the Ma'atic order, the oneness that only you can manifest. We pray for clarity of thought and understanding of universal spiritual principles. Open our mind's eyes so that we will no longer be bamboozled or hoodwinked. We reclaim our identity and self-respect stolen from us by years of oppression. We are the parent people, and we accept our responsibility to the universe to replace the current global system of white supremacy with a system of justice. O one who is blacker than a trillion midnights, grant us this petition as reward for our patience and perseverance in this hostile land. Ashe. Context of White Supremacy. Signing out. Thanks all for tuning in.
I'm a victim, brother.
Problem. You're a victim.
Man, I'm a victim of 400 years of conditioning.
Shut up.
The man has programmed my conditioning. Even my conditioning has been conditioned.